What a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. How are you? And welcome to the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X. It's, as always, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website where 100% of the revenue stays right here in the lovely province of Alberta. PlayAlberta.ca, where, of course, tonight you can also get your tickets for Lotto 649. And the gold ball jackpot, $22 million. Good luck at PlayAlberta.ca. Hey, by the way, I hope one of you was the winner of last night's $60 million Lotto Max. So just remember, honor our deal. Honor our deal. Sports 1440. Like it. We got a loaded show for you today. Mike Rupp will be by. Also, we have David Harrison, Tyler Yaremchuk, Rich Winter is going to join. I think it's going to be a fascinating conversation today as we talk about an element of coaching and really championship teams that gets really overlooked. It's something that's very important. And it's interesting because it is prevalent in most of the teams. And players will talk about it after the fact, but sometimes they use different verbiage and different words. So we will talk about that. I think it's something that you yourself in your everyday life, and when you hear it, I think you're going to be like, I can see. Now, some people can be like, oh, come on, you don't need that. I would argue that you do. So we're doing that with Rich Winter today on the show. Also, we will be joined inside that, though, show by Matt Demozic will give us his kind of expertise on the topic. So I very much look forward to that. Also, we will hear from Mark Spector, Derek Ryan. I sat down with Derek Ryan, actually, and I sat down with him prior to him getting waived, which I'm thankful I did because he has a great story to tell. And I think people are really going to want to listen to what he has to say. So we're going to play Derek Ryan at 3:00 today. I think it's something Oilers fans are really going to enjoy. So we got that. Talk a little Commanders, Jaden Daniels. Yeah. I don't even care if you're an NFL fan or not. I think most of you are a fan of sports. You're a fan of the playoffs. And Jaden Daniels, he's an exciting player. He is a fun player to watch. So we'll touch on that. The Edmonton Oilers last night is a game where sometimes you play well and you don't win. And last night was one of those examples. I think, from Zach Hyman to the players to the coach, it was all just like, you know what? I thought we played pretty well. Some nights you don't have it. And the Oilers' shot attempts were 60-28. Shot on goals, 28-10 and 5-on-5. Now, the only thing that was bad for both teams was their power play. Neither team's power play, generated many chances. Edmonton finishes the game on a 6-on-4 for 2 minutes, unable to capitalize, so they probably wouldn't have loved that. That's valid. But you take the number one team in the league, and at 5-on-5, you dominate them. That's what the Oilers did last night. Now, they did make 2 errors, and errors will happen. Mistakes will happen. The errant drop pass for in the offensive zone by Arvidsson goes right the other way, a 2-on-1, basically from their own blue line. They score. An opportunity. The second goal, maybe you could nitpick and say maybe they could have cleared it out. Skinner, you got to, and there's the importance of screening the goalie. All right. So the defenseman walks the line. You got a guy in front. Goalie looks over the right shoulder, trying to get a beat on the puck. Puck goes left side. Boom. It's in the back of the net. You don't see it. Now there's going to be some people that freak out. Okay. Freak out all you want. To me, last night was not a game to freak out for the Edmonton Oilers. I think they'd be pretty happy with how they played. They just didn't win. Now they got a chance at redemption against the Capitals at the end of February. Most likely Connor McDavid will be in the lineup. Now, I do think tomorrow night's game becomes pretty big because you don't suddenly want to get on a 3-game losing streak. I don't care that McDavid's not playing. Doesn't matter. The Buffalo Sabres just beat the Vancouver Canucks last night. The Canucks on home ice, where, by the way, they are brutal. Like, it is. The Canuck fans, they're 8-10-6. You basically win 1 out of every 3 home games. Not good. Not good at all for the Vancouver Canucks. They are a good road team, 12-6-4. And the Oilers, of course, won't have McDavid. Will there be any more spice in the game? every time I think there's going to be a little bit more juice, there isn't. So I guess I'm going to err on the side of I don't expect it to be that fiery. We'll see. But the Oilers, they just want to win. You want to keep pace with Vegas. You're 1 point back now with 35 games remaining. The race is on for first in the West, and it's close. Oilers in Vegas. Vegas now, technically, you could say they're 2 points ahead because they own the tiebreaker right now at regulation wins. But there's lots of time to close that gap if you're the Edmonton Oilers. We'll see what happens. Each team has 29 wins. Vegas just has more regulation wins. Edmonton has more regulation overtime wins, but the first tiebreaker is regulation wins. And right now it's 26-22 for Vegas. They've been in a little bit of a fun 5-1 in their last 10. So Edmonton has gained 5 points on Vegas in their last 10 games. And that makes the race great. 45 to go. Now, if Edmonton gains 5 points in each of the next 10, obviously they're going to win the division. Probably unlikely. I don't expect Vegas to go 4-5-1 3 more times in 10-game sequences the rest of the way. I'd just be stunned. I think they're too good. But overall, Edmonton didn't mind a lot of their game. Leon Draisaitl, once again, steps up in the absence of McDavid. Goal and an assist. The power play, you heard Knobloch. They put Ekholm on it. Evan Bouchard, and I keep saying it, the shocking thing to me about Bouchard is that more of his wobbles come now with the puck on his stick in the offensive zone. Missing passes, shots not getting through. That's his forte. Right? Like, I didn't see Bouchard in the defensive zone becoming a big problem last night. It was his decisions with the puck and, just missing like passes that he would normally make in his sleep. Right? How many times did you see him, even on the power play? He plays the top of the power play. He's played it for years. And his pass is just making guys reach. And now that causes an extra second. And that allows the defense to recover. Just little things that it was just off. So, when John Klingberg comes in, I don't expect him to suddenly jump up. But if John Klingberg plays well, there could be, and I emphasize the word could, maybe be some competition for the first unit power play. Maybe they all of a sudden are splitting a minute each, right? They're not going to take Bouchard off the power play. I'd be surprised by that. He's a pretty good power play player. But does the window open if, his struggles continue? We'll see. We're not going to see Klingberg tomorrow. You're not going to see him on Saturday, but you could be seeing him maybe as early as next Monday. We'll see. 833-401-1440. 833-401-1440 in our email inbox. That's where you can text us. Also, coming up Friday night, it is wrestling night for the Oil Kings and presented by sports1440.ca. And Eddie Steele will be participating. Does he have a name? Like, does he have a moniker? Cons, I haven't heard it. I haven't seen it. Are we going to see Eddie like in full wrestling garb here? Is he coming in? Are we going to see him pull the Duke Myers? Where you got the wrestling, you got the straps kind of and then you take one off and now you're just dangling it down. Right? Kind of like the overalls, like Brandon when he goes to Cook County. Sometimes he likes to take one of the overalls arms off. It's a terrible look at Cook County, but Brown tries to pull it off. It's great. But to steal, I haven't seen it. There's a moniker. Like, what are we expecting here from Eddie?
Well, we had tweeted out the link. We're selling $20 tickets for Friday night. If you want the link, I can pass it along to you.
And that's $20. There's no taxes, nothing else. It's just $20 a seat.
Very nice, right?
Yeah.
But he tweeted, Stone Cold Steel is coming to play.
Come on. Whoa. You can't take Stone Cold Steel. Like, it'd be like him. Hey, it's Eddie the Animal Steel. Well, no, there's George the Animal Steel. We know that. There's Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't know if he can pull off the Stone Cold. Like, that's a.
What about the Real Deal?
Eddie the Real Deal Steel?
Or Eddie, the Real Deal, Eddie Steel?
Twisted
Steel?
Some of our listeners are going to have. Yeah, Eddie Twisted Steel. That one's way better. Way better. I know our listeners out there. There's a few of you that are witty. Feel very like, what's Eddie's name? He's got to have a name. And maybe it doesn't even have to be Eddie. Maybe it's got to be something different, right? Like, there's The Undertaker. There was Kane. Maybe he just needs a different name completely. I don't know, but I'm very disappointed that I won't be there on Friday. Now, Khan's going, and Liam's going, and Declan will all be there, so it should be fun. But I look at Eddie. Feel free to text in names that he should be using. Curious, is he going to roll in like with it? I could see it. Like, do you think he rolls in with one? Because as everybody knows, in football, the football jerseys fit pretty tight. Is he going to roll in with his football jersey? Take a pair of Struddy short shorts and the football jersey? Hey, guys, Eddie Bon Steele. Oh, that was actually not bad. Oh, he would hate it. Oh.
I wonder what the gear will be.
Oh, we might have to get him on the show tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll send out the text
just to find out what he's gonna. So if you want to go, you can actually go to Sports 1440. We can send you a link directly where you can get $20 tickets all in. It's not $20 plus all the extra taxes. It's $20 total if you want to go on Friday night to see.
And we do have a 4-pack to give away at some point today as well.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, do that as well. Why don't we do that first? Because then people don't get it. They'll want to go buy tickets.
Good call.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we do that right now? If you want to go, 833-401-1440, 833-401-1440. I will, maybe we'll have some Eddie Steele trivia. You know what? He would probably appreciate this question. So, text in which university did Eddie Steele play for before being drafted in the CFL? Where did he play at? 833-401-1440. 833-401-1440. So, and then Cons will pick it up and we'll see. Hey, boys, Duke Myers was great. The loaded glove was specially reinforced and even had doctor's notes for it from Guy. Oh, buddy. I remember you had Duke Myers and Kerry Brown. And anybody who's a Stampede Wrestling fan will remember. They were great heels. Duke was a fantastic heel. The reinforced loaded up glove, amazing. And then every now and then I think he partnered up with Cuban Assassin too, if my memories. Now I might be wrong on that, but or maybe they were just both heels. But either way, I do remember Duke Myers. Sick name too, right? Like Brandon, if his name was the Duke, I think he'd instantly, not just his nickname, you might automatically get more street cred. Especially when he tries to walk in with his overalls with the one sleeve down, by the strap, not the sleeve. So.
Eddie Steele, yo girl.
Eddie Steele, yo. I don't know. Could he wheel a tire down a hill? I don't know. I'd have to ask his wife what happened there. How did that happen? So, boys, just call him Eddie the Eagle. Oh, it was a great Olympian. At least a memorable Olympian. Maybe not great, but a memorable one for sure. Hey, guys, I've got a cousin by marriage who's still mad that Eddie beat him out for the U-Sport Defensive Player of the Year. Well, hey, there you go. Hey, you know what? It's good to carry a grudge sometimes. I know some people aren't going to like that advice, and that's fine. Depends what the grudge is. Right? Could be healthy. We'll see. We got a lot of correct answers, so Connor will pick one during the break. We'll return, and we will hear from Mike Rupp next on the Jason Gregor Show, Sports 1440, Orders Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X.
Weekends were made for Oil Kings hockey at Rogers Place. Family fun that's second to none, starting at just $20 a seat.
It's a special 6 p.m. puck drop this Family Fun Sunday in Ice District. Catch your Edmonton Oil Kings facing off with the Lethbridge Hurricanes.
Enjoy the kids' fun zone with face painting and bouncy castles.
And at every home game, score Calmont Kids food combos for $10 or less. The value is king-sized.
Edmonton Oil Kings, Lethbridge Hurricanes, Sunday evening at 6.
Great family entertainment at Rogers Place starts at just $20 a seat. Save on day of game pricing now at oilkings.ca.
Hey, sports fans, we've got a clear choice for you. At Crystal Glass, we provide customers with the perfect glass for any job. From home to auto and even commercial, installation or repairs, we're your team. Call 310 Glass or visit crystalglass.ca. Crystal Glass.
The job isn't done until the last load is hauled, and having a semi-trailer out of commission is not an option. Whether replacing or adding to your convoy, Edmonton Trailer has a huge inventory of new and used semi-trailers, trusted by the gravel, logging, oil field, fluids, and freight industries. Find a trailer right for you online or at one of their 3 locations. For sales, service, parts, rental, and finance, when you're in it for the long haul, Edmonton Trailer.
Vimy and Donnan Hockey are dedicated to skill development for all hockey players. If you know a student athlete interested in growing as a person and a player, attend the Donnan Open House on January 23rd from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Beginner or experienced, this program nurtures and develops a student athlete's skills in a supportive environment. The Donnan Open House is a great opportunity for prospective student athletes entering grades 3 through 6 to see what Donnan Hockey and all the other sport academies at Donnan have to offer. Visit donnan.epsb.ca for more info.
When you live in northern Alberta, you need a vehicle that is built for this climate. That's the all-new 2025 Jeep Compass, and you'll find it at St. Albert Dodge. Now, what can I say? It's a Jeep. It's a 4x4, so it's totally at home driving on snow and ice. And it's got some great standard features like an 8.4-inch touchscreen, keyless entry, and heated front seats. As I said, northern Alberta. And all starting from just $34,900. Head up the trail and see how easy it is to do business at St. Albert Dodge.
Need a solid foundation without the fuss? Richard and Kalina at DCL Pile Driving have your back. Locally owned, they offer straight, driven piles. No screwing around. Serving all of Alberta, DCL Pile Driving gets your foundation ready in hours with minimal ground disturbance. Perfect for tight spaces, whether it's for a deck, grain bins, or RTMs. Tell them the radio sent you and receive a special discounted rate. Call or text 587-322-PILE. DCL Pile Driving. Don't get screwed. Get piles driven.
How do you beat those winter blues? How about a double shot of classic rod? River Cree Resort and Casino proudly presents Helix. And Sweet. February 28th, live in the venue. Helix and Sweet. Get your tickets now at rivercreeresort.com.
River Cree Resort and Casino. Excitement. Bet on it.
Portions of this hour brought to you by Papa John's. Papa John's would like to say thank you to their pizza-loving customers. Take 40% off any pizza this week. Use code TY40 at papajohns.ca.
The Jason Gregor Show. The best of Edmonton sports. The Jason Gregor Show. The best hat tricks, touchdowns, and home runs. Get it all with the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
.220. Welcome back, Jason Gregor. Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Many of you got the correct answer. The University of Manitoba for the Bisons is where Eddie played before being drafted. Got some funny ones. Obviously, people going into the past of Eddie Steele, his moniker, Eddie Steele, a.k.a. the North Valley Knob Womper. Oh, this one did make me laugh. Eddie's going to hate it. Skip a meal, Eddie Steele. Oh, geez, come on now. But I do there's hey guys, Eddie's finishing move should be the clothesline, but they call it the steel curtain. Not bad. Not bad. So yes, Eddie will be at wrestling night for the Oil Kings on Friday night. But we got to get him a good handle. He tried to tweet out Stone Cold Steel. I'm sorry. Can't steal it. You can't be another Stone Cold. That'd be like some guy in the NHL coming in and saying he was going to be the great one. Can't do it. Right? You just can't do it. So, like certain nicknames, once somebody has them in that sport, I don't think anybody else can take it. It's just kind of how it goes. So, like, do you think someone else is going to come in and be the great 8 in like 15 years? No, not happening. Let's go around the NHL, brought to you by McDonald's. And you want to try the triple cheeseburger, or hey, maybe you're so frustrated about McDavid's suspension. Well, you can support him and get the Big Mac David, the double Big Mac. Right now, only at McDonald's in their Showdown menu series with Matthews and McDavid. As Mike Rupp, former NHLer, Stanley Cup winner, ace analyst for NHL Network, as well as color analyst for the Pittsburgh Penguins, joins us. Rupper, were you a wrestling fan growing up?
I definitely was, yes.
Who was your favorite wrestler?
I guess it depends. So I was born in 1980, so I was as a young kid.
Yeah.
And then I kind of took a little hiatus, and I got back into it in my late teens, early pro career of playing hockey. So I had different genres of it. I'd say probably originally I was a big Ultimate Warrior guy.
Oh, yeah.
And then when we got back into it, I ended up being big Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, that was my guy.
Oh, yeah. You probably tried the old crushing a beer, right? You did it. I'm sure you did. Chug it, squeeze it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I got a funny, quick. You want to see a little quick story about the wrestling?
Oh, yeah.
I was drafted first round by the Islanders. The only reason why I'm throwing that in there is because it'll come back because I look like a complete tool later on in the story. They were putting this on. So Greg Cronin was actually working up at the USA Hockey facilities up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and the New York Islanders sent all the prospects there after drafted to get on like a schedule.
Right.
And, you just get drafted, and I was all bummed because I had Monday Night Raw tickets on for in Cleveland. So Ann Arbor to Cleveland is approximately, 4 hours or whatever. And I had those tickets. I told my agent, like, I had these tickets. He's like, are you kidding me? You're going to this camp. You just got drafted, whatever. So I went to I ended up not saying anything. I had my car, left, and drove, basically did Monday Night Raw, drove in the middle of the night all the way back to the workout in the morning. And I show up at the workout. I'm just tired. I just got to get through this workout. And I never changed my clothes. And I had a sleeveless Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt that said a professional ass kicker on it. And that day, we actually started sparring. They're teaching us some boxing and conditioning. And they tried to pair me up with Eric Cairns because they figured I was like a big tough guy. Yeah. And I'm like, no. This is a Stone Cold shirt. I was at the wrestling event last night. So, I think I kind of set the wrong precedent there early on as a young player.
I love the sleeveless shirt, though. That's such a wrestling outfit, though. That's fantastic. Oh, my God. And Eric Cairns, Strutty told stories about fighting him, and he was just like petrified. He was a huge human.
Yeah, so they tried to pair me up with him, and I'm like, I don't have any boxing experience. I remember his name, Evgeny Korolev, I think was his name, and they put him with him to spar, and just left-hand jabs, and Cairnsy broke Korolev's nose. So I'm like, thank God I got out of that one. But anyway.
Hey, what about, speaking of fight, what about the big man, Matt Rempe, scoring in New York last night? A pretty nice goal against the Senators. And the Rangers, and we talked about this 3 weeks ago. I was like, I know the Rangers were in 14th spot at one point in the East, and they look brutal, but they seem to have found their stride again, 6-1-3 in their last 10.
Yeah, I mean, there's still the talk out there and the rumors with JT Miller and that kind of off-ice stuff, but it kind of feels like things have gotten quieter within the team, and they've been able to focus on playing the game. I don't think they've looked lights out, but they're winning hockey games right now. And we talk about how open the East is, especially in those wild card spots. The last one in particular. I mean, for me, there's a stamp on this. It's earmarked for the New York Rangers. And I don't know if they're going to keep up the same pace they're on right now, but they're moving in the right direction. Matt Rempe, awesome goal for him, first of the season. Just that big long reach, getting into his backhand score. It has a little bit of a celebration, which I'm sure some people would have something to say about it. But I think the whole thing with Matt Rempe and the New York Rangers, they got to play with confidence and swagger. I mean, that to me was one of the biggest things. And it's hard, like when you're not winning and there's all this outside noise, how do you really feel good about yourself and about your team? You got to find ways to manufacture this. So Matt Rempe has a certain way of doing it. Maybe it's not normally scoring goals, but you see him put his hand up to his ear right after the goal, a little celebration. This team's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, no, they had a lot of talent. They just weren't playing up to their capabilities. Although Mika's a Zibanejad Rupper, he still doesn't look right.
Yeah, Mika's he's probably one of the most. If you go back to good Mika, and you date this back maybe even 3-4 years ago, when Mika runs, he's about as hot and cold as you can get as an NHL player. When he runs hot, there's honestly not. And I mean everybody. There's not many that can run hotter. And you remember the one year, I think he finished probably, I want to say it was 2 or 3 years ago, he finished with like 40 something goals. And it was pretty much like some, just guessing the dates here, say it was like a late January, early February run from there to the rest of the season, where I feel like he got like 30 goals. Like he just went on incredible. But when he's not in that type of hot mode, it could be very pedestrian or even worse. And that's what we've been seeing. So that's one thing with him and his career is he can do different things. He kills penalties. He can win faceoffs. He can provide different things. But I feel like he always measures himself, at least his body language tells me that, on getting offense. And he needs to be contributing in different ways. And he has to have confidence in doing it and maybe making it done. Maybe it's blocking 5 shots tonight. Maybe that's his job in this game. He's hot and cold, and when he gets going, he gets going. But we know that his game, he's still a little bit lost out there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know he doesn't. He just doesn't look right. He's still right in the lead or right close to it for the green jacket at -25, which is obviously not a great look for him. But the Rangers are starting to come around. I don't think there's much question about that. Most of us thought eventually, they just have too much talent. But, the JT Miller rumblings aren't going away, Rupper. And, last weekend there was, it's close, but then some people refuted it that it wasn't really that close. I watched the Washington Capitals last night live. And, Edmonton was all over them. They just didn't score. Thompson played pretty well, but Washington did a good job. I don't think Edmonton penetrated the slot as much as they would like. But I looked at this Capitals team and, I don't love their blue line. Am I wrong in thinking they're going to have to upgrade Sandin if they want to really go deep?
Yes, I think so. And here's things like I don't mind Rasmus Sandin if he slotted appropriately, and maybe that's even what you're meaning here, because he's an effective player when he's I guess. If this was a decor that just had no offensive puck mover and you needed to find ways to get production or to connect the dots from your forward to your defense, I think Rasmus Sandin could fit in with a lot of teams. I just find with the Washington Capitals, you've got John Carlson, you got Chychrun, you got guys who can kind of do those things and they could do more. And so I think it makes him a little bit miscast at times. And even if he's playing, even if he gets moved up into a top 4 pair, it just doesn't feel like he's complemented very well. So I think they need, if I'm looking at this decor, I think they need non-sexy, stay-at-home defenseman, and just get someone who's just going to be difficult. Protect the assets that they've had. They've had great goaltending this year. Let's just try to keep. It's just one of those old school signings before the playoffs. Like one of those, like, hey, we've done our job. We're sitting good going into the playoffs. Let's just get a wily vet here, whether he's playing as a D man. If he's playing 11 minutes or 18 minutes, he's going to give us the same thing. I think that's the type of move they need. But I don't know what your thoughts were watching them. But like for Edmonton fans, you don't get to see this team often. There's something interesting here with this Washington Capitals team. Like, I think they are legitimate. Like, I think this team can go on a run, especially in the Eastern Conference come playoff time.
Well, especially like Florida's defense isn't nearly as good as last year. They're not. They don't have Montour. They don't have Oliver Ekman-Larsson. That's 2 of their top 4 guys gone. And the guys they replaced them with aren't nearly as good. And they have 0 cap space. So now, you know what? Could they go out there and get some guys, for mid-round picks? Maybe. Right, like they didn't have to give up a lot to get Tarasenko last year, and he was a good addition. But I look at Florida; they're not as good. Toronto's good. I look at New Jersey. I'm not sold on the Devils, to be honest. I think they've been higher in the standings all year because they play more games than everyone. But if you look at points percentage, they're like 11th or 12th in the league. And then Carolina, I really like Rupper, but same old with me. They don't have a second line center, and they could win a round. I'm not sure they can win 2 or 3. So Washington definitely could do it. Not only do I think they would look for an upgrade on their number 1 left defense, but they can upgrade their third line, and they might just get Ryan Leonard from college. Actually, I'll be stunned if he doesn't leave when the season's over and sign. But I think I know they went out and got Lars Eller. I don't think Lars Eller is a third line center anymore. He's maybe a 4th, and they got Dowd. So I don't know if they swip him, but I watched Eller very close last night. He did. This is not the Lars Eller that won you a cup. Right? He's just a different player.
Yeah, I do think though. So with this team, I love what you said there with Leonard too. So they can get a boost maybe at the end. I mean, geez, I played for the New York Rangers when we got Chris Kreider coming out of BC, and what an impact he gave for us. Just a shot in the arm, just this youthful jump. So that's something that this Caps team can maybe use. But I just look at the team. I think now one of the most non-talked about guys, I think, is Dylan Strome. I think Dylan Strome has turned into he's a legitimate centerman at top. I mean, he could be a top line center. He is a top line center, but I think generally speaking, we normally thought of him maybe as line 2 center, but he's been great there. Pierre-Luc Dubois has been actually really good. And we know that this is a guy that, man, come playoffs, like he can change his game and make it of real value for his hockey club because of some of the attributes you don't always see, but we have seen by him in the playoffs. But Dowd might be my favorite fourth line center in the league, and he can elevate in the lineup. So I agree. I think that they have a little tweaking maybe to do with the group, but man, they're a gritty group. If Ovi could keep any resemblance of scoring like he's been when he's been in the lineup, man, this Caps team is going to be legit.
Mike Rupp joins us on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X. And Rupp are the Ottawa Senators, the Montreal Canadiens. They have identical records now. The only difference is Ottawa has a better goal differential. They're even, where the Canadiens are minus 12. But the Canadiens have really been rolling. You know, they had a big win the other day over the Rangers. If you had to pick between those two, and you look at everything, is there one you like better and why over the final 35 games?
I mean, I severely would pick Ottawa over Montreal.
Okay.
I love what Montreal's doing. I still think this is I still think there's something with not having expectations in the pressure. I think Ottawa's dealing with that this year, and sometimes they look really good and sometimes they don't. And I still think that if you're talking about a team down the stretch when it gets to the nitty gritty, I still need to see, can Cole Caulfield, can a Nick Suzuki, can undersized guys like that still, when the season gets harder and harder, can Patrick Laine contribute when he's not scoring goals, or can he even score goals when it gets to the nitty gritty? Like I have a lot of question marks. I mean, Kirby Dach, I think he's going to have a great long career, but there's just the unproven for me with Montreal, where you could also say there's unproven in Ottawa, but I feel like Ottawa is a little set up to play the harder time during the season. And they're a team that I think is ready to go. And the fact that we haven't had them have a complete meltdown at this point. I mean, usually the last 4 years it's happened by now. I think they're going to be okay. I think they're navigating through this. I think the Ottawa Senators are going to be the team that makes the playoffs.
Okay. Moving over to the West. I look at Dallas, and last year I think their lack of defensive depth by playing basically 5 D-men hurt them. And when I look at their blue line this year, especially Tanev's gone, they're not nearly as good. How busy do you think Jim Nill's going to? Like, I think they have to add 2 defensemen to that lineup if they want to take a serious run in the Central.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, I think that there's also pressure on this team because they've been on this cusp of what we thought winning a cup here, and there's a lot of pressure to maybe this year. Every year is kind of the year for these guys. They lost. You mentioned Tanev, they lose. They lost Ryan Suter, right? So you're a depth guy there. They have some pieces like you're still Nils Lundqvist. I don't think he can really. I don't know. I like him. I like him as a defenseman. I just don't know if he's a guy that they can really rely on. I think they need more depth at that position. I mean, Brendan Smith has been a pro his entire career. I mean, the fact that they were scratching Matt Dumba. So, I mean, he's not really, it wasn't working out in some regards. So, this is a team that I think is going to be active. I think they have to be. I think this is a team that they can't be complacent come deadline time because this window that they have is kind of wide open and they got to capitalize.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. What about Winnipeg and even Washington? Because it's funny, the Anaheim Ducks goalies, have the most saves above expected this year. Next is Winnipeg. Third is Washington. So on one hand, you're like, they're getting very good goaltending. On the other hand, Rupper, I'm like, they're giving up a lot of real quality chances. So when you look at Washington and Winnipeg, does that concern you that, yeah, they get great goaltending right now, but if you continually give up that many quality chances, especially when you get to the playoffs where you're playing better teams every night, that's going to be hard to match. Like,
yeah. No, it's that I would be concerned because this is a team. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I don't know what they were last year. Obviously, Connor Halley won the Vezina last year, but I'm pretty sure their defensive metrics, they were one of the top teams in the league, and you know, not having that or the expected against to not have that in your favor. I mean, you're really relying on your goaltender in a lot of different ways. I mean, the one thing we always see come playoff times for even the best teams and the most offensive teams, sometimes you just don't score goals. We saw it with Edmonton. You go through stretches where you're just not scoring goals. You got to keep the puck out of your net. And I would hate to, no matter if even Connor Halley, who might win another Vezina here, I would hate to put that all on him because then you're asking that, then you're getting into an equation like I've spoken about with the Rangers. Like, and there's a whole other conversation with Igor and his deal. I'm like, that's great and all, but you're asking Igor to be Superman every night.
Yeah,
he's going to have some nights where he's not. Are you going to win those games? Like, I'm not sure. So that's a big question mark I think I have with Winnipeg in the way they've been playing, and that kind of coincides with some big question marks we have with Connor Halley not performing in the playoffs. So I'm really interested to see how things shake out, I should say, in Winnipeg. I think they're a much better, and they have been a much better defensive team. But right now, they're relying pretty heavily on their goaltending.
Rupper, as always, great to chat with you. Have you been to a live, like when you were in the NHL, did you ever get to do a live wrestling event ever?
Yeah, I did. I went to a couple. I'll leave you with one last wrestling story. I was playing actually this time in the American Hockey League. And do you remember how it used to be? They used to have the live nights were like, I don't even remember if it was Monday and Friday. And then they had shows in between that weren't televised, but there were still events going on in different cities. But it wasn't like as big of a spectacle. And I remember I was playing for the Albany Riverettes, the American Hockey League, and we were sitting down on the floor around ringside. We got good tickets because we played in that arena, and I needed to use the restroom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, instead of walking up and going in the concourse, I know where our locker room is right through here. And I just kind of walked down, and it was going off one of the little aisles going off behind the curtain. I open up the curtain, and the Hardy Boys are standing there ready to run out and, like, you know, jump whoever's in the ring. Yeah. And they open the curtain. I open the curtain, and they stare at me and like, what the hell are you doing here? And it was I almost got lit up by them, but it was kind of fun. Yeah. So we had some good ones. A couple of us guys got caught almost in the train tracks there of a WWE event, but I loved it. Love wrestling.
Oh, that'll be great, man. I appreciate it, Rupper. And we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Awesome. Have a good one, Greg.
You betcha. That's Mike Rupp from the NHL Network, also analyst for the Pittsburgh Penguins, who, what are they going to do? I didn't ask him today because we've talked a lot about the Pens, but man, I said this months ago, the Penguins were going nowhere. They don't have enough talent. Simply, they don't. And I hear, they're going to do a fire sale. Who? Honestly, who? Like people, Erik Karlsson. Which team wants Erik Karlsson that's going on a playoff run? Because you better have really good defensemen to play with him. That's what you need for Karlsson. He can help you move the puck, everything, but honestly, and are the Penguins, are they going to retain $5? Are they going to retain $5 million? Maybe. At Karlsson at $5 million, you'd probably get some interest. But at $8 million, I don't think so. Just because he leaks too many goals against. And it's not just goaltending. We've talked about that environment. It's awful. We'll return. We're going to hear from Connor McDavid and Derek Ryan coming up in hour number 3. We got 5 questions a little bit earlier today. David Harrison will join us. Rich Winter, the Business of Sports, Spec, and much, much more. Very busy Wednesday edition of the Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Hockey is back, and Play Alberta, Alberta's #1 sportsbook and official partner of the Edmonton Oilers, has you covered with bigger offers, boosted odds, live betting, player props, and more. New to Play Alberta? New players now receive $200 in free bets just for signing up. You already play? Get a $10 free bet for every $100 you bet every week all season long. Visit playalberta.ca and make your picks today. Bonus terms and conditions apply.
Wow, get ready for a Sally hockey fans. Your partner in power just skated onto the ice.
EWEL.ca, the new e-commerce website for electrical wholesalers Edmonton, is ready for the power play 24/7, 365.
UL skates to where the puck will be in 5 years. Now that's forward thinking.
Killer selection, slamming products from the best brands, and legendary service.
Don't sit on the bench. Get your account today at EWEL.ca and win that project.
Plug into your partner in power. Get an EWEL.ca account today.
At Hughes, it's all about getting in and out quick and clean. No cash, no problem. With Hughes' new tap and wash system, all you need is your debit or credit card to get your vehicle sparkling clean.
Find us at HughesCarWash.com.
Elevate your game with the Basketball Show, hosted by me, Paul Sir. Tune in Saturday mornings at 10 for expert insights, exclusive interviews, and the latest hoops action. It happens right here on Sports 1440.
McDonald's presents a hockey showdown like never before. McDavid versus Matthews. There can only be one winner, competing for all the glory and all the prize. The new menu features top shelf plays like the Smoky Quarter Poppy and the Big Mac David, so everybody scores, with even more delicious options like the Spicy Junior Chirpy. Now that calls for a silly Sunday. The Showdown menu, now available at McDonald's.
Hair Aware with Dr. Vance Elliott.
Hey, Dr. Vance, does a hair transplant have to look like a hair transplant? There's a guy at work, his is totally obvious.
My goal is to give every one of my patients a full, natural-looking head of hair, so I stay up to date on the latest innovations. This is science, and more importantly, an art. I do things differently and move more hair than is normally done, resulting in a thicker look that is also more natural.
Trust a world-renowned expert in hair restoration. Book an appointment at drvanceelliott.com today.
Is it Riverside Motorsports?
No. It's Riverside Motorsports. Over 55 years in business, and people still get it wrong.
Guess it's time to get it right.
Riverside Motorsports. What you do for fun is our business.
Attention drivers, it's the midwinter tire clearance sale at Fountain Tire. Right now, you can save up to 20% off all in-stock winter tires. That's right, premium brands, unbeatable safety, and incredible savings. But don't wait, this sale ends March 8th. And once they're gone, they're gone. Contact your local Fountain Tire for complete details.
Portions of this hour brought to you by Ewell. Ewell.ca is your power play partner with a new website that puts the power in your hands. A 24/7 ordering and shipping within Edmonton and across Alberta. Score an account today at EWEL.ca.
The Jason Gregor Show, the best of Edmonton sports talk and beyond. This is Sports 1440.
Presented by playalberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Yeah. $2.40. Welcome back, Jason Gregor. Connor Halley with you, Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X. We're going to get to Connor McDavid coming up at the top of the hour. But first, we're going to get to the oil report brought to you by Volvo Cars Edmonton. As right now, you can get a brand new 2025 XC90 plug-in hybrid at 1.99% for financing and save $4,500 from Canada's #1 Volvo dealership in sales, Volvo Cars Edmonton. Derek Ryan. I sat down with Derek last week because maybe some of you don't know. Just before the break, Derek Ryan had played his 600th NHL game, and you know what? There's 1,420 players, give or take, who have played 600 games. So it's a good milestone, but it's not crazy. However, when you dig a little bit deeper, Derek Ryan's only the second player in NHL history to debut in the NHL at 29 years of age and play over 600 games. Only 3 guys have ever played over 500 games. Like, it's hard to do when you start that late in your career. And so, Derek Ryan, of course, former U of A Golden Bear, played for the Spokane Chiefs, was never drafted, took a scholarship, came to the U of A for 4 years, won a national championship his first year, ended up being the leading scorer on the team his final year. Then he went to Europe and was doing pretty well over there. You know, making good money. You're playing in Europe, a little bit less stress, but he made that decision at 28 to try to come back to North America to give it one more time. So I sat down and because I think his story is one that's worth listening to. And for a lot of you, your parents, you know, hockey is still a late developing sport for lots of players. Lots of goalies don't really get in their own until they're 25. Right? Lots of other skaters aren't in the NHL until 23, 24. And people are getting so upset at early ages. Derek Ryan was never a superstar in the WHL. He was a good player. But, you know, he was on a last place team when he led them in scoring with 61 points. Right? And he had a good career, not a great career, didn't get drafted, was never really talked about, and ends up playing 600 NHL games. And there's lots of other undrafted players who have really good NHL careers. So I caught up with Ryan and just asked him about that decision and what led to him when he was in a comfortable time of his life at 28 to take a chance to come back to North America.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long story. I try and keep it brief, but yeah, I mean, I was playing in Europe, having a good time, making good money. Had kind of made a life for myself and my family. My firstborn child was born there, and so, you know, life was good. Didn't necessarily have to come back to North America, but just was surrounded by a lot of smart people that are smarter than I am. My wife, my agent, my family, you know, it just kind of pushed me to kind of take the chance. You know, this is your one opportunity after my year in Sweden. Most importantly, you know, I had that good year there, and NHL teams are starting to look at me after that. And yeah, so that was my chance. And, you know, the story doesn't end there. I signed with Carolina and basically spend the whole season in the American Hockey League and making less money than I was in Europe. And, you know, travel is a lot worse in the American League. The lifestyle is a lot harder than it is in Europe. So that was a grind, mentally and physically, and had to stick with it. Got called up at the end of the year and kind of made my mark there. I scored a couple goals and thought I put a good foot forward. But again, the next year I had to start in the American League again. You know, there was a decision before that year whether I even come back or go to Europe. And, you know, is this time to cash in? Is this going to work out? And again, the people around me kind of pushed me to make that decision and stick with it. And like I said, started in the American League again, 10 games. Had a really good start. Carolina was struggling, and they called me up, and then kind of haven't looked back since. So
it's a great story, I think, for your own kids, but for just a lot of people out there, perseverance, and you have to believe in yourself. It also is, it sounds like you had a lot of people around you that believe you, because everybody has self-doubt at times. Someone's like, no, you can do this. And the financial thing when you're 29 and 30 is a legit thing for sure. You're making way less than the American League. So that's where, you know, your support system and your wife to really support you, say, you know, like, this is about your goal. It's not just about the money right away.
Yeah, totally. I think that's kind of the advantage that I had at that point in my life, is that I was a little bit older, a different stage of life, had a wife, had a kid, and, you know, plans for more children at that point. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the picture becomes bigger than just me. I'm not just a 21, 22-year-old thinking about myself. I'm thinking about, you know, the dream that I've had, but also the people that I'm trying to take care of, and they're thinking about me as well. So yeah, there's a lot of decisions that go into it, a lot of factors. There's a lot of stepping stones along the way. Yeah, I think it's a motivating story, not just for my family, but for kids across the world. You know, hockey or whatever sport or whatever you're doing in life, it's a story of perseverance, sticking with it, but also just kind of taking care of what's important right in front of you right now. You know, I wasn't thinking about the NHL when I was playing for the Bears or playing in Austria or Sweden. I was thinking about it a little bit when I was in the American League, but, you know, every step of the way, you're just kind of, how can I be the best that I can be right now where I am? And I mean, I think in life that's pretty useful.
Your ability as a player, you know, evolved, and, you know, you must have changed a little bit. What did you focus on in Europe that allowed you to become a better player, and obviously, you know, kind of maybe reopen the eyes of NHL scouts as you as a legit prospect?
Yeah, I think that's another advantage that I had, having my journey, kind of touching every rung of the ladder and different ladders along the way, I guess you could say, is that I was able to change and adapt and grow in my game. You know, I grew a lot as a Golden Bear on and off the ice. I matured, went to Austria, which is a pretty high-flying, high-scoring league. 5-4, 6-5 games. So I think I learned a little bit of the offensive part of the game there, how to score and how to make plays. And the transition from Austria to Sweden was incredibly hard because Sweden's the opposite. It's a 1-0 game in Sweden is the best hockey game ever. So it's really defensive, big goalies, big defensemen, strong, hard to get to the net. So, that's the point in my career where I think I learned to play the defensive side a little bit more. I learned to grow my game, play the 200-foot centerman role. And also, I learned to score in hard, tight areas. That's how you have to score there. So, yeah, I went from there. And then, the change from European hockey to North America is huge. The ice size is obviously different and a little bit rougher here and more grinding along the boards. And the American League's definitely a lot of that. So I had to learn that and grow that to my game as well. So, yeah, as you see, every step in the journey, I kind of added a layer to my game and I grew and adapted. And the same is true for my time in the NHL. I've had to grow and adapt and what I can do and what I can provide for the team here.
Every coach I've ever talked to that's had you as a player, probably the one thing I talk about is just hockey smarts. Where do you think that comes from? And just can you describe for you, the importance of understanding the game, regardless of whether you want to be in an offensive league or learning the defensive game, how important that is maybe for young players to really get a sense of how to play the game?
Oh, I think it's huge, especially in today's day and age where kids have so many resources to hone their skills. Every kid growing up now can skate, can shoot, can handle the puck way better than I could have back then just because of their training resources and what they're able to do. But I think quite a few of them struggle with how to play the game and kind of how to put it all together. They have all the tools, but they can't put it all in the toolbox, so to speak. Where did I get that? I don't know. I think it just kind of came natural to me. I guess it's something that maybe God-given a little bit, but you kind of learn, as a guy, a player like I am. I'm not the fastest guy. I'm not Connor McDavid. Nobody is, but I don't have his speed or his hands or whatever, his vision. You kind of have to grow your game a little bit, a piece at a time. And, I see guys like him and I can add a piece of his game. Maybe I can see his vision or his poise with the puck. And then you see Leon, I don't have his big body. I can't protect the puck like he does, but I can see a little bit of layer that I can add. I can't be like him, but I can add a little piece of his game. So I think I've just been good at that. I've been good at seeing other players, what they're good at, and trying to, not emulate them, so to speak, but just add a little bit of their game to my game.
And you've created something you're very good at. You're an elite face-off guy. And, a lot of the big centermen are big.
Yeah.
Right? You obviously, I don't know if you want to give away tips at it, but what allowed you to get better as a smaller guy on face-offs?
Well, with today's video, I don't think there's any secrets that I could be hiding to keep me at the top or wherever I am. But I don't know. I'm smaller, so I guess that gives me a little bit of leverage. I can get underneath people. I've kind of grown and added layers to that in my NHL career as well. I started my career in Carolina and getting a lot of O-zone face-offs, and it's a lot easier to win draws in the O-zone. You can be down second. You have an advantage there. And there were guys in Carolina like Jordan Stahl, Jay McClement, who were taking a lot of D-zone draws, so I could watch them. Obviously, they're bigger bodies and they have a different style than I do. But again, I can see what they're doing, tying guys up or trying to get over the dot a little bit more, owning the dot, so to speak. That's what Rod Brindamore liked to preach. There's a lot. I could speak for hours on the intricacies of face-offs, but yeah, I've just tried to get better and better as I've grown here in the NHL. And there's a lot of people that they come in and out of the NHL. It's hard to stay here, and so I feel like you have to add valuable pieces in order to stay here for a long time. And 600 games for myself, starting at 29, that's pretty good. I'm pretty proud of that.
You talked about how you learned how to score in Sweden in small spaces.
Yeah.
What did you learn? How do you become successful at scoring in small spaces?
I think there's a lot to that as well, but the simplest thing is just you have to be willing to get inside, get to the net, get to the scoring areas. Coaches across the league in the NHL, I'm sure, know the stats of where goals are scored from. There's not that many guys that can score from outside the big house or whatever. I don't have the Ovi shot or even Cappy has an amazing shot. I don't have that. So you have to find ways to get inside, and I don't have a huge body either, so I can't just go get to the net and stay there. The guys are going to be able to push me out. So it's working on timing, getting there at the right time when the puck's going to be there, kind of meet it there. There's just lots of little things that I learned in Sweden, because you can't – on the big ice in Sweden, they protect the middle. You can fly around the outside all day long. They'll give you that, but you have to learn, how to penetrate that, how to get in the middle and get to those scoring areas and get there when it counts.
This journey has been more than just about you, your wife and the plans to have kids and to make that sacrifice. Your son's big into hockey. He loves it. He's at that age now where, he's not just a 5-year-old. He kind of understands what dad does. Kids they can learn lots from their parents, just a work ethic, whether you're a farmer, engineer, whatever. How important is that for you that, your son can see, your commitment, your perseverance without you having to say much sometimes?
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that's part of the legacy that I'm trying to leave Zane and, not just Zane, but my nephews and whatever, family and friends, people I don't know. It's the impact that I try and leave on the hockey world. But I think he's a little young still. I think he, sees that dad isn't the flashy player that maybe some of the other players are, which is fine. But I think later in life, he can look back when we're looking at 97's jersey in the rafters and, knowing that dad played with him and was a part of something special here. That'll hit him later in life, as most things do, as your perspective changes, you grow and mature and all those things. But I think he's learning a little bit. He's seeing, what dad has had to do to stay in the league, what I've done to get here in the first place. It's not something I preach to him for sure, but it's something that he can see on his own.
Chris Knobloch told me you're a top 5 again, a lot of the fitness tests at the start of the year. It's obviously something you've taken a lot of pride in. Yeah. You don't stay in the NHL, in your late 30s if you're not in elite shape now, for sure. Can you put into perspective what game number 600 and, now every other game, what it truly means to reach that type of milestone, only the second guy to ever do it, and how you've been able to continue to do that? And obviously, does that push you to think about 700?
I try not to do that because that's kind of the message the whole career, right? I'm not looking towards the next step. I'm not looking towards Sweden or the American League or the NHL. I'm looking towards what's important right now. And for me, obviously I'm older, different perspective, but I think a lot of guys have the same perspective that, we think we have something special here, and that's what we're focusing on. We're trying to do something special here. And, so I think that's a big part of it. Obviously, fitness has been a big part of who I am, kind of the whole way. It's a big part of my identity. And as you get older, it just gets more and more important. I think my fitness has changed a little bit. I'm not getting under a 400-pound squat barbell anymore. I'm just working more on my conditioning, trying to maintain some quickness and skill and all that kind of stuff. But it's all important. It's all layers to the whole onion that I'm trying to put together, which is my identity as a hockey player. And that's a small layer of the onion of who I am as a person too. So I guess that's it.
And lastly, Derek, everybody in this room is ultra competitive. You don't get to the NHL without being ultra competitive. You're in a role player's role now, and some nights you're in, some nights you're out. The importance to always be upbeat and positive. I'm sure deep down you're disappointed in any game you don't play. Yeah. How do you put that aside at this stage to just make sure that you can be the best guy, even if you don't get to play every night?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the biggest thing for me is that I've been around long enough now that I've seen kind of both sides of that. I've seen the guys that are in and out of the lineup and they're moping around, they're sad, they're mad, they're pouting, whatever it is. And that's just an energy suck. Nobody wants that around. And like I said, I'm trying to be part of something special here. And whether that's I'm playing every night or every third night or whatever it is, I'm trying to focus on what's important now, which is what's right in front of me. And, what I can do today. If I'm playing, great. What can I do to help the team win? If I'm not playing, then that's great too. What can I do to get better and be ready when it is my turn to play?
So Derek Ryan, of course, I did that interview with Derek late last week. And then on Sunday, he was placed on waivers. We'll go down to Bakersfield. Was actually quite happy to know their team claimed him, wanted to stay in the organization. My understanding is actually their agent even, if any team was asked, they say, hey, you know what, I'd rather not get claimed. So he'll go to Bakersfield and be ready in case he gets another opportunity. He might not get another opportunity. If he doesn't, it's an unbelievable career to play 603 games, starting at the age of 29. And just, kept growing and developing his game. And I love what he had to say about just the hockey sense and the hockey smarts and learning that part of the game. I think it is something that is massive. And you know what? Look at his size. He got, smaller guys can make it. It's hard. And it's probably harder simply because if a guy's 3 inches bigger and 15 pounds heavier and the skill is the same, well, he's going to have advantages. So I think being a smart, cerebral player, and you have to have a work ethic. And it reminds me of the line, like when you talk to people and anybody out there, and, everybody has these goals and, hey, my goal is to do this or that. And that's great. But you can't have goals that you don't have habits for. I think it's one of the best. I don't even know. I can't remember where I read it. But it's something that I wrote down and I use on because kids, here, this is my goal. Okay, great. Well, what are you doing to reach the goal? What are your habits that will get you there? Derek Ryan kept wanting to stay in the NHL. So his habit became, I come to camp and I'm top 5 in testing every year. Give yourself to, he didn't have the skill of McDavid or Draisaitl, but you have the will. And that's a key thing. So can't have goals that you don't have habits for. It's very true. Let's get to Connor Halley in the Sports 1440 update brought to you by Booster Juice. Right now you can warm up with Booster Juice and their savory grilled fresh food options of breakfast wraps, chicken wraps, grilled cheese, steak paninis. No matter the time of day or how hungry you are, Booster Juice will help you warm up this January. Go to boosterjuice.com.
This is a Sports 1440 update.
Lighter night tonight in the NHL. Devils hosting the Bruins at 5. You got the Jackets and Leafs at 5:30. At 7:30, Avs host the Jets. Then to wrap it up at 8 o'clock, the Kings hosting the Florida Panthers in the association. 8 games on the schedule after 1 game postponed. Pelicans, Bucks not going to play due to snow in New Orleans. Clippers hosting the Celtics. Warriors take on the Kings. You got the Jazz and the Thunder. Grizz host the Hornets. Cavs in Houston. And the Nets up against the Suns in the AJ. Just 1 game tonight. Grand Prairie in Fort Mac taking on the Oil Barons. That'll get going at 7:30. And in the PWHL, Boston hosting Toronto at 5 o'clock. Some news from the NFL. The New York Jets and Aaron Glenn agreeing to terms to make the former defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions the new head coach. It's a 5-year deal that contractually keeps him with the organization through 2029. Meanwhile, down in Jacksonville, Trent Baalke is out as GM of the Jags after he failed to land second interviews with 3 of their top coaching candidates. Coming up in hour 2 of the Jason Gregor Show, we'll hear from Oilers Nation Tyler Yaremchuk. Also, Captain Connor McDavid comments earlier today at practice. I'm Connor Halley. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
1440, a Stingray radio station broadcasting on Treaty 6 territory.
Download the free iHeartRadio app and listen to CKJR wherever you go.
When picking a New Year's resolution, try to avoid things you have no influence over.
Like bringing home the cup? That would be awesome.
But completely outside your control. Instead, pick something you can control, like bringing home some Wilhauk beef jerky.
That would also be awesome. But what if we brought the cup home to Canada and it was filled with Wilhauk beef jerky?
Okay, I'll allow it.
Wilhauk beef jerky, only available in Leduc. Get yours today because you don't win cups with salad.
It's a new year, and The Brick is clearing out their old inventory. They're blowing out furniture for up to 60% off the original price, with in-stock items ready to go and additional unadvertised discounts. Check out your nearest Brick location to save up to $1,300 off sofas, up to 25% off bedroom and dining, and up to 40% off mattresses, plus more deals in every department. It's a new year, and The Brick is clearing out their old inventory. Exclusions apply. The Brick, saving you more.
Imagine a family get-together where the smiles are as genuine as the conversations. That's the feeling you get at Nisku Ford, a family-owned dealership where finding a new Ford feels just like catching up with old friends. Swing by during the 2024 model clearout and take advantage of January rebates of up to $9,000 or access finance rates as low as 0%. The coffee's on, so drive into Nisku Ford or visit niskuford.ca today. Above expectations.
Portions of this hour brought to you by Crystal Glass, your clear choice for residential windows locally manufactured and installed. Crystal Glass provides a beautiful product and incredible customer services for all of your residential needs. Call 310 Glass or visit crystalglass.ca for a quote.
The Jason Gregor Show, the best of Edmonton sports talk and beyond. This is Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
It's after 3 o'clock. Welcome back. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley, Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Hope you're having a lovely Wednesday afternoon. Of course, Oilers day off today. They skated. They will take on the Vancouver Canucks. Canucks are going to come to town a little angry. Rick Tocchet said last night's performance, they blew a 2-1 lead, lost to the Buffalo Sabres, said the most disappointing game he's been a part of since he was the head coach of the Canucks. You know what it is? Because think about it. You know, when your parents yelled and screamed at you, you don't really remember it. But the time in a very calm voice when your mom or your dad was like, I'm disappointed. That one hits you way harder. For the coach to say he's most disappointed he's been as a head coach, I'm thinking the Canucks might come out as the young kid trying to earn the love back of their parents. We'll see. 833-401-1440. It is the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. Get in the game. Use the promo code Gregor50 and get a free $50 play at PlayAlberta.ca. Hey, Greg, that was the best interview you might have ever done. Great questions. And wow, does Derek Ryan have amazing hockey IQ, determination, insight, and very articulate. Thanks for great sports radio, Mark in St. Albert. Mark, thanks for that. Hey, Gregor, classy interview with DR. His work ethic and story is what makes his franchise Oiler gold. That one comes in from another Mark. Guys, I really enjoyed that. Anywhere I can get my son to listen to it, yeah, it'll be up at jasongregor.com. You have the individual interviews there, or you just go anywhere where you get your podcasts, and it'll be up in hour number 1 of today's show, probably up in about 50 minutes time. So there you go. And the written version of that transcribed is up now at OilersNation.com as well. If you like to read it, maybe highlight some of the insight from Ryan, feel free to do it. Now let's get to another player who's currently on the roster, Connor McDavid. He skated today, spoke for the first time since the NHL handed him a 3-game suspension. Now I will start with this one just because I chuckled. He was asked in the moment when the game's going on, did he see the refs did not put their hand up?
I did not. I had my head between my legs, so I didn't see what the refs' reaction was.
There's a subtle little jab. No, of course I didn't see it. My head between my legs. So does he think it's an issue that in hockey that call doesn't get made, whereas other sports it probably would?
It certainly seems like that. Certainly seems like that's the way it's going. I think everybody as players across the league, not just me, not just guys in this room, but I think across the league just want to see the game called. A penalty in the first is a penalty in the third. A penalty in October is a penalty in April. So I think guys just want that standard, want that consistency. I would say that's a big part of it, is just the consistency, which is tough to ask for, that goes from game to game, ref to ref. So again, as I said, the refs have a hard job. I have nothing but the utmost respect for the refs and the work that they do. It's a thankless job. It really is. But with that being said, just call the game.
Yeah. I've said it for years. The rule book is there. It outlines what penalties are. Just abide by the rule book. Now, I get that it's open to interpretation. I understand. And that's why to me, this is bigger than the officials. They get guidelines from above. And if the NHL, because look, who changes the rules in the NFL, Connor Halley? Not the refs, the NFL. The NHL, don't ever convince yourself, because everybody likes to blame the ref because that's who you see every game. It's not the ref's fault. Honestly, stop blaming the refs. Gary Bettman, competition committee, that's who the problem. It's not George Peros. George Peros doesn't ref games. People get upset about suspensions. You know how many suspensions there are to calls in the NHL? It's not even 1%. Come on. But people like to find a scapegoat. No, the issue is Gary Bettman, the owners, and I would even argue to an extent the Players Association, because they haven't done enough. Like, if the players want change, then demand it. You're the show. You're the stars. Demand it. Talk to your owners. Demand it, because I think you'll get it. In the past, McDavid mentioned he just wants the rule book to be called. Is essentially that's what he's saying again?
I mean, if any player around the league is asking for anything other than that, that would be surprising. I think that's what fans want. I think that's what media want. I think that's what the league should want. The rule book's there in place for a reason. Just because maybe one guy draws more than another guy, or one team draws more than the other team, then that's the way it is. If it's 4 penalties to 1, then it's 4 penalties to 1. It's just you just want to see it called. But again, I'm going to keep hammering this away. I don't have a problem with the refs. I got a lot of respect for them. I can't have that reaction no matter the situation.
Yeah, very fair. Right? He can. He's right. And that's what we talk about. He's deserving of the suspension. I thought it'd be 2 games, 3, whatever. You can't make that play. I understand it. But he is bang on that it doesn't always have to be, 2 to 1, 3 to the other, 4 to 1, 3 to the other. Right? How many teams in the league have a massive disparity in the amount of penalties they take to the penalties they draw? Not many. Right? It's rare to see a team, most power play opportunities, least penalty kill situations. Doesn't happen. And you can't tell me it could never happen. Some teams are going to draw more penalties, especially the better teams. That's just a fact. But, they like to officiate the games to keep them closer. I'm a firm believer in that. And until someone can show me numbers otherwise, that's what I'm going to believe. McDavid also talked about, skill players. Now, it's to me, the way the question was worded, skill players, I don't need to be skill players. Everybody knows the guys who have the puck the most, because that's who most infractions are on, the puck carrier. Of course, the skill guys have the puck more. So it's not even that you're not giving them special treatment. You're just simply calling the game because the puck carrier is usually the one who's going to have infractions against them. Rare. Now, there's the odd time you're going to try to hook down another guy as he's going on a 2-on-1, maybe, right? Trying to catch him, sure. But look at the vast majority of penalties and who they're called on. They're called on somebody who's trying to do something to the puck carrier 90% of the time. So, what about, does he find that there's not enough calls on the puck carrier / skill guys?
Well, I mean, go back to other sports, right? Like, I think the quarterback draws the most penalties. Why is that? Because he's got the ball the most. That's not anything other than he's got the ball more than other guys, so he draws more penalties. In our game, usually if you have the puck, you're going to draw more penalties. We got the puck a lot. We attack the net a lot, it feels like. It feels like maybe we could draw a couple more. But do you want me to say it again, or do you want me to not say it again? I got a lot of respect for the refs. Like, it's, it is so.
Having the week off, does that help him at all? He gets an extra week off, or is there no silver lining for 97?
I love to play. What am I going to do? I'd rather be on the ice than sitting at home resting. It's not like I can get a week away in Cabo. So, I'm here. I'm here. I want to support the team. I want to be here for the team. I want to be here to get myself ready to roll when it is time. We'll have 6 games before the break, and we want to go into the break on a high note. I always feel that's important. How you go into a break is important, and that's my main focus here.
And lastly, McDavid just talks about there's been some more physicality lately. Has he changed his game in some ways to try to create more space for himself?
You want me to go over all the plays? I think the LA hit is not anything other than being physical in a game where I thought we could have used it. I thought it was a little bit of a dull game where I'm trying to get my guys going as the leader of the team, and hard on the back check and finish a hit. It's obviously extremely unfortunate that whatever he's dealing with. The Johansson one, I mean, it's tough to skate with your arms tucked in. I'm not trying to get on at all, obviously. that's extremely unfortunate, and I feel awful about that. Like, it's the league alluded to history in the suspension. I am not sure I have that necessarily that history of being a dirty player. With that being said, they made their decision based on whatever they based their decision on. I would have to think that it's not all based on one play. I would think that there's lots of influences that go into their decision, which is unfortunate. It's unfortunate that that's the way it is. I don't think. Obviously, I'm not trying to hurt guys. Every game I go out there, I'm thinking, how am I going to score? How am I going to make plays? How am I going to help the team win? It's not, who am I going to elbow next? Like, that's not who I am. I don't think anyone here thinks that. An unfortunate week.
So there you go. Unfortunate week for McDavid. Gets a suspension, and I think what he said. Hey, I can't react that way. Very valid point. He can't. So let's start there. Some people are trying to say McDavid shouldn't be suspended. No one's saying that. But the point is, there should have been a call on the play. It's obvious there should have been a call. But even that isn't the point. The point is, across the NHL, and it's not just McDavid. Talk to Colorado fans. Talk to Toronto fans. Talk to other fans. You can watch the games. And the numbers, and you have all the numbers to back it up. So in the last 4 years, NHL penalties per game really haven't changed. 2.89 to 2.8, which is like a 0.03% drop, minimal. But in that same time, McDavid and McKinnon, the two fastest, the two most dangerous players in the game, have seen their penalties drop 50%. The rest of the league dropped 0.03, which means, those guys' penalties have all dropped, someone else is getting those penalties. Right? Someone else is, because the league isn't seeing that big of a drop. It does not make sense. I'm sorry. The numbers don't make sense. And when you watch the games, it's there. Just call the damn rule book. And I don't care if it's 6 penalties a night. And some nights, if the Oilers take 8 penalties, don't ever complain, well, they were due one. Maybe they weren't. Some nights, you don't just get a penalty because the other team has 3. So you can't argue that you want the refs to call it and then say, yeah, but they got more power plays than us. It's not how it works. It's not going to be how it's work. It's not supposed to be even. It's not always going to be even. Some days you take more penalties. It's just a fact. Right? I coach at U13. There's games where, you know what? My team's taking 6 penalties and every one of them is deserving. Doesn't mean I'm like, well, the other team should just start getting deserved penalties. It's not how it works. So fans just have to be clear. If you want it, then understand it's not always going to benefit your team. That's not what unless you're asking for bias, which makes no sense. I don't want the rest to be biased, but I want the bias to benefit me. It's not how it's going to work. Want the penalties called? Some games, your team might be shorthanded 6 times. The other team's 1. Deal with it. Because that's what you should want. Then the good teams figure out how to play the game and not take penalties. Or at least no one's ever going to not take penalties. Reduce the number of penalties that they take. And that's what has to happen. No doubt in my mind. And hopefully then, but keep in mind, the players, Connor McDavid has the biggest voice in the game. You're at the 4 Nations. You got Nathan McKinnon. You're all in the room. Sit down and talk about it and devise a plan of attack to make it happen. Because they're the ones who do it. They have the most say and control in this. If they really want to make it happen. Because change isn't easy. But you got to be willing to get uncomfortable to make change. So if they want it, then you have to do something about it. Quick break. We'll return. We got 5 questions. Your Remchuk. Then the business of sport. A very interesting topic today in the business of sport. In something that I think when we get into it, people are going to be like, wow, I don't know. I think it's going to be one side is going to say, well, I don't think that's really necessary. Another side is going to say, well, that actually makes a lot of sense. So we'll get into that today in the business of sports on the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Hockey is back, and Play Alberta, Alberta's #1 sportsbook and official partner of the Edmonton Oilers, has you covered with bigger offers, boosted odds, live betting, player props, and more. New to Play Alberta? New players now receive $200 in free bets just for signing up. You already play? Get a $10 free bet for every $100 you bet every week all season long. Visit playalberta.ca and make your picks today. Bonus terms and conditions apply.
Scott McGilvery here, HGTV host and renovation expert. The one upgrade I know homeowners will love: better, fresher Culligan water straight from the tap. Culligan's Aquasential reverse osmosis filtration system takes your water to the next level. With up to 7 stages of filtration and 14 filter options, they're certified to reduce over 90 contaminants. Your tap water is about to get a major upgrade: safer water that tastes great. Get started with a free in-home water test at Culligan.com. Culligan, water you love.
Do it. Your vehicle is a big investment. Protect it at Hughes Car Wash. We use only clean, fresh water and the highest quality car wash. So, Hughes Car Wash, the car wash pros.
Do it at Hughes Car Wash. Find us at HughesCarWash.com.
Edmonton, step up your shoe game. The all-new Skechers store is now open at West Edmonton Mall. Don't miss our grand opening event with great deals. 30% off all Skechers footwear and 50% off apparel. Spend $100 or more and get a free performance water bottle while supplies last. From performance shoes to stylish sneakers, we've got it all for the entire family. Your perfect pair of Skechers awaits at West Edmonton Mall. Skechers at West Edmonton Mall. Grand opening week happening now. Come in today.
Are you afraid of losing your car or home due to debt? Don't let fear or shame hold you back from seeking help. Bankruptcy is not the only option. A consumer proposal can reduce your monthly payments, lower your overall debt, and allow you to keep your assets. My name is Parveen Middleton. I'm a licensed insolvency trustee at BDO here in Edmonton. I'm here to help you tackle your debt. Take the first step towards regaining control of your finances. Call 1-833-BDO-TALK or visit bdodebt.ca to learn more.
Portions of this hour brought to you by Papa John's. Papa John's would like to say thanks to their pizza-loving customers. Take 40% off any pizza this week. Use code TY40 at papajohns.ca.
From puck drop to kickoff, it's the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
.324. Welcome back. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley, Sports 1440. Oilers Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Presented by PlayAlberta.ca. Hope you're having a lovely Wednesday afternoon. Happy hump day. Your work week is almost 60% over. If you're a Monday to Friday, or if you're those who work the weekend, Wednesday to Sunday, you're just getting started. So kudos to you. Just starting the grind, shall we say. Let's go in the room, brought to you by Action Electrical. Now, hey, you know what? They help out a ton in the community, but also they are the very unique initiative that they are doing right now, helping in El Salvador, the Action Shelter team. They're leaving. They're going to be building 10 homes for families. They got a big group of people that are going over there. And if you're looking to help out, they got a little bit of a shortfall to help build the homes. You can go to shelterhelps.com/Action Electrical. There you go. Let's welcome in from Oilers Nation and Daily Faceoff, Tyler Yaremchuk. Ty, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Greg's, how are you?
I am good. Connor McDavid comes out. Hey, I can't said on numerous occasions, I respect the refs. Obviously, I can't have the response that I did, which is totally valid. Just as valid. He's like, hey, just, penalties here. I don't care what time of the game it is. I don't care what month it is. Just find consistency. Now, saying it today is awesome. but I really believe the NHLPA with McDavid and others, they have to devise an actual plan. If they truly want change, they can't just say it on a random January 22nd.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. I think, and this isn't just about, Connor McDavid getting the calls or whatever. It's about every star player. Like you said before the break, he's going to be in a room with Nathan McKinnon and Sidney Crosby in a couple of weeks. If we want to get this issue fixed, it's about every star player not having the field leveled on them. And that's really the penalties that kind of annoy me. Like, guys get away with stuff all the time, but it's when a player's allowed to hold McDavid behind the play or slash Leon Draisaitl an extra couple times, and the refs go, well, they're the best players. If I called everything, then there's going to be a bunch of penalties in a game. Well, no, if you called everything, eventually the other team is going to adjust, and the defensemen who can't stop themselves from taking penalties against the best players aren't going to play, and their role will go away. Like, it's only a problem if you make it one, if you're the officials. So I agree. I mean, what McDavid said, I think every hockey fan would love that. A penalty in the first period is a penalty in the third period. Doesn't matter if one team has 4 power plays and one team has 0. And again, the refs aren't going to catch everything, but just in the way and the mindset of the officials, I think it needs to change. And I think you're right. It takes more than just McDavid stepping up. I think there needs to be some sort of a united front or a plan from all the stars kind of putting their hands up at once, being like, we don't like the way this is going.
Yeah. And I wonder if they ever do it. I know it's not in the DNA code of hockey players to speak out, but things change and people evolve. And I think at some point it would be wise to at least have a bigger conversation about it. Oilers lose last night, and from every player after the game, coach, they weren't obviously you're disappointed you lose, but he liked the referee. He outshoot him 28-10 at 5-on-5. Shot attempts were 60-28. Now the power play wasn't good last night, but neither was Washington's. Both power plays looked kind of to be honest. And, that I guess maybe was a difference for Edmonton. The big complaint, if you have to have one, was, 2 goals where they kind of made just some bad decisions that led directly to the goals against.
Yeah, like the first one obviously isn't on Stuart Skinner. That's a drop pass from Victor Arvidsson. Like, if you're going to do a drop pass when your team's rushing in with 4 guys, like, you got to be 110% sure that that's the play to make and that you can make that play. So I didn't like the drop from Arvidsson. And then on the other one, I mean, Skinner has to stop that second one. To me, that's just tracking the traffic wrong, and then letting a goal in basically on the ice from the blue line is unacceptable. And on the third one, if you're Troy Stecher, slam on the brakes. Like, even if Stuart Skinner would have stopped that first shot and it didn't go through his legs and hit the post, Troy Stecher was peeling into the corner already. So it's a frustrating game because on each of the goals, you're right, there was a play that led right to it, and they were all avoidable, preventable to some extent. But I think when I look at that game as a whole, the Oilers played really well against one of the league's best teams. I think it's the league's best team. We're at the 50-game mark here, and they're the only team whose points percentage is above 700. Like, I know people were in my replies yesterday being like, well, look at their PDO, look at their shooting percentage, this, that, blah, blah, blah. Listen, someone's got to have the highest PDO in the league, and Washington, again, only team above a 700 points percentage. So I didn't walk away from that game being like, the Oilers missed an opportunity. They played fine, and if they play that way the next couple here against Vancouver and then again on Saturday against Buffalo, they should go 2-1 with McDavid out of the lineup. And what more could you ask for?
Yeah, well, the Canucks are going to come to town pretty fired up, I would think. Their coach pulled out the most disappointing effort since I've been the head coach. Not yelling, very calm voice, and usually that's going to get the attention of players. They had a 2-1 lead in the third period against the Buffalo Sabres, last place team in the Eastern Conference, and blew it, and ended up losing that game in regulation. So, and Vancouver is now in a legit fight for the playoffs, for that final playoff spot. They have Calgary and St. Louis are right there, and I don't know if, I know Frank Saravalli believes that Utah is still in it and thinks they might make a big splash, so you can't rule them out either. So the Canucks got to get rolling here, and the Oilers, if they're annoyed about the Garland situation, the best way to get back at them is beat them in a game, and also beat them because the Oilers, they want to avoid a 3-game losing streak.
Yeah, that too. You definitely don't want to be falling into a slide here. There's that old line, right? Good teams will lose back-to-back games or whatever. Great teams never lose 3 in a row. So it'd be good to see the Oilers get back in the win column. And I think it'd be smart. Again, you're already behind the 8 ball with no Connor McDavid. Don't get caught up trying to go run Connor Garland or do anything stupid. I think as much as some fans maybe want to see them do that, it will be way sweeter if you can walk out of there with a 5-2 victory and you push the Canucks down even further. You don't need to go take penalties, blah, 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 just to feel like you got some sort of retribution. So I'm with you. Tomorrow's a big one. But again, like just kind of the way they played against Washington, the fact that this big, long road trip is over, I think is a sigh of relief for the team. Now you can kind of dial it in. They've been good on home ice this season, 15-9 straight up. 15-8-1 is their actual record, but they've been good on home ice. They play the way they did last night. I have no concerns about the result tomorrow.
What's your expectations for Klingberg?
It's a tough question and this goes back to, what I kind of felt about the rumors of Jonathan Toews coming back. And it was like, okay, you can't really judge it until you see how he plays and how he looks and how he skates. So with Klingberg, watching some of the videos from practice, okay, it looks like he's skating pretty well. Do I think he has top 4 upside? I really don't. Like, my hope coming into this season and leading up to the deadline was that they would find a partner who could help elevate Darnell Nurse, not someone who Nurse is trying to elevate like the way he has been with guys in the past. And I just don't think Klingberg has that amount of upside. If he comes in and plays really well for a month, even then, I still think you're going out there and trying to find a bigger fish for that top 4. And if Klingberg ends up being depth, then that's a really good problem to have. But, I think he can be a good stopgap in the meantime. I like the fact that he's, a puck mover and puck transporter. I think that style of defenseman works well with Darnell Nurse. But I don't think no matter how good Klingberg looks in the first 2-3 weeks here, I would hope Stan Bowman is still keeping his eyes on the trade market because I think they're going to need one more piece no matter what.
I look at Klingberg, and if everything he said about his mobility is true, and John Klingberg's back and has his mobility, he was an elite defenseman for Dallas for the first 7 years of his career. The last 2 years obviously weren't, but he went from elite to like -28 in like literally a snap of a finger. It wasn't like he went from +20 to +1 to -5 to -50 and then -28. Like it was, dramatic. And how he explained it, like I remember John Klingberg in the bubble because I was at all those Stanley Cup final games, a lot of the playoff games. He was Dallas's best player. And he's got a little bit, he's definitely got more edge to his game than people think. Like he's not running around and hammering guys by any stretch of the imagination, but he's pretty competitive. Like I think the Klingberg bet has way more upside than downside because the worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. You still got time. You can make another acquisition at the deadline. If it does work out, now you save giving up assets for a defenseman that if he comes even to 85% of what he was, there's not many right defensemen who are available who could even do that.
And that is part of it too, I guess. And part of the reason why I'm okay with him taking this risk is like the trade market is not flush with righties. There's a couple of lefties. And I guess if they like the Kulak moving up thing, they could look at the lefty market. But the reason this Klingberg thing makes sense is because you're right. If he's at, and I question if he can even get to 85% of what he used to be. And maybe the stint with Toronto and the stint with Minnesota down the stretch after he went there at the deadline a few years ago, maybe that's just standing out a little bit too much for me. But I'm just really skeptical that he can get back to that level, even if the skating bounces back a little bit. I was chatting with Jason Demers, and he kind of said, like, even in that last year in Dallas, some of the decision-making that Klingberg had at the blue line wasn't great. And, like, again, that's the last thing the Oilers need is to be giving up odd man rushes and whatnot because they're being overly aggressive at the offensive blue line. I'm skeptical about it. Again, it could work, but I still think even if Klingberg hits, they got to be shopping for another layer of depth on the blue line.
Oh, I think it's a left D man without question because they've got all these right shot D men. So I think they would, like a guy who can probably be a number 6, but is most likely your 7 or 8. And, if Troy Stetcher's your extra righty, then if you get into more injuries, you got Brown in the minors, and then you go out and get another lefty. I definitely could see that. But just like up front, like Evander Kane, I don't know if Kane, everybody's like, oh, it's a foregone conclusion that he plays. I'm like, are you sure? Like, do we know this 100% guaranteed that Evander Kane now he might tell everybody he wants to play. Is he putting in the work so he's ready to go? I don't know. We'll have to see. But even if he is here, I still think Edmonton needs a little bit more bite to their lineup on their forward group before the deadline.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think the idea of someone like a Trent Frederick is a really good thing. Someone maybe who can play center. So I agree. I would definitely have another forward on the shopping list here. Not someone you're spent like they're not shooting for a Brock Nelson or whatever or anything crazy like that. But someone who costs you a third, fourth round pick, comes in with a decent cap, and yeah, gives you a little bit of bite. I have no problem with that. Like again, I've liked what Kasperi Kapanen's brought to the lineup, but you probably don't want him playing every game. I've been, it's early returns here in the Noah Philp thing, but I don't know if you really want him playing as your everyday 4C in the playoffs. So I would look for bite, and preferably it's someone who can play center. And again, if it's a guy like Frederick who can move around a little bit, that just gives you more flexibility. But I agree with you, and I would just hope they zero in on a centerman.
Tyler Remchuk joins us. Do you think there's going to be a little extra edge in that game tomorrow night?
I don't know if that's how this Oilers team is really wired. Like, I know when they play the Kings, you'll notice, like McDavid specifically, well, if he sees Mikey Anderson, like he takes a couple extra strides and likes to finish a check on a guy like Mikey Anderson. But like, this is an Oilers team. They don't jump into scrums and go crazy. Like, I kind of get frustrated with that sometimes. There was the Skinner play with Zadorov. There was Eichel hitting Ekholm from behind. And on both those, no one's jumping over to go fight a guy. So I really don't think it's going to have that much animosity tomorrow night, unless it's started by the Canucks, which I guess is entirely possible. But no, I don't think anyone on the Oilers is going out of their way to take a run at Connor Garland.
Yeah, no, by the way, I'd love to see it though. Just
me too.
Just for, I'd like to see a Nugent Hopkins, Connor Brown, Troy Stetcher. Oh yeah, two little Bantam Roosters going at it. Be unreal. So, but do I think it's going to happen? Unlikely, but it would be great because you need a little rivalry. You need to juice things up, especially it's January. It's a dog days of the season. And you know what? Like they're in a race, but come on, you're not going to keep intense playoff race for 35 games, for goodness sakes, with Vegas. So I'd love to see it. I'm not holding my breath, but it sure would be fun if it actually came to fruition. But I just don't, I don't see it. So one last one for you. Do you believe Edmonton needs to upgrade their goaltending?
Okay. I don't think so. And here's kind of my reasoning is look at the track records. Like, again, I know people look at Calvin Pickard and he does his play style doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in you. But I mean, last season he came in under not great circumstances, gave the Oilers a .909 save percentage in the regular season. And I get that when people talk about upgrading their goaltending, they're like, you need a better partner in case Skinner falters in the playoffs. Okay, when Skinner faltered in the playoffs last year, Calvin Pickard came in and played great. Everyone says saved the series against Vancouver. So like Calvin Pickard has passed every test you've put in front of him more or less as a backup goalie. Why are we jumping over each other to go try upgrade that? I don't get it. Stuart Skinner, listen, last year had some really tough moments in the playoffs. This year has been inconsistent. I also look at him as a still relatively young NHL starter. He's been thrust into a role earlier. He was thrust into a role way earlier than he needed to be. And part of that is he had to learn, or what comes with that is having to learn on the fly. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be overly worried about the Oilers goaltending ruining their chances in a playoff series next season because, again, against Skinner, he was bad the first two games against LA, was their best player the next two. Wasn't good early in that series against Vancouver. Pickard comes in, but then Skinner comes in, plays great at the end, was their best player against the Dallas Stars. Like, there's as much as people focus on the negatives with Skinner and Pickard, there are a lot of positive stretches from these two.
Yeah.
The fact they're $3.6 million combined is a massive luxury for this team, considering their cap picture as well. I'm not spending assets and I'm not spending more money to upgrade something that I don't think really needs to be upgraded all that bad. Would it be nice to have a Skinner McKenzie Blackwood duo and it's, like a light version of Ullmark and Swayman? Sure. How did that work out for the Boston Bruins? Did they win a Stanley Cup with those two? Did they go to a conference final with those two? No. The Oilers have this duo. They brought them to Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final last year, and their combined cap hit is $3.6 million. There's bigger needs for the Oilers right now. Defense, center, fix those. And then sure, dream scenario world, if you have a bunch of extra money and some backup goalie falls right into your hands for a 4th round pick, I guess you could do it. But then I even just think you're disrupting the room for no reason.
Ty, great stuff, buddy. We'll chat with you tomorrow on the Rundown. Have a great day.
Sounds good. Thanks, Greg.
There you go. That's Tyler Remchuk from Oilers Nation and Daily Faceoff. We'll come back. We got 5 questions. Also talk a little Commanders. An exciting young quarterback. Can he keep the run rolling? Find out next on the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Actions speak louder than words. Japa Machinery Group puts your construction plan into action with XCMG construction machinery you need. Available for rental or sale. Learn more at japamachinery.com.
Attention drivers, it's the midwinter tire clearance sale at Fountain Tire. Right now, you can save up to 20% off all in-stock winter tires. That's right, premium brands, unbeatable safety, and incredible savings. But don't wait, this sale ends March 8th. And once they're gone, they're gone. Contact your local Fountain Tire for complete details.
Just when the weather is freezing your nosy, someone's got a new menu that's tasty and cozy. What? It's Booster Juice. Now you can warm up and chow down with a savory selection of grilled fresh favorites. Breakfast wraps, chicken wraps, grilled cheese, steak and chicken paninis, topped with melty cheese, creamy pesto, spicy chipotle, grilled fresh options made in-house, warm and delicious. Made daily with the finest ingredients. Cozy comfort food at Booster Juice. Download the Booster Rewards app today.
You've got a go-to coffee spot, a trusted barber, even a lucky game day jersey. But when it's about looking your absolute best, there's only one name you need. Mr. Dirk. Family run since 1939. We're experts in crafting impeccable tailor-made suits and offering a wide variety of everyday styles. Pair that with personalized one-on-one fittings and the convenience of on-site tailoring. Mr. Dirk elevates your style game. Visit our Edmonton store or explore MrDirk.com. Score big on style with Mr. Dirk.
Day or night, tasting just so right. You can order Oodle Noodle at oodlenoodle.ca, delivering you the news almost right away. Remember, you can order Oodle Noodle at oodlenoodle.ca. So stay on your couch all day and order oodlenoodle.ca. Oodle Noodle.
Sunday, February 9th. Touchdown! The biggest game of the year. It's on 30 TVs.
Only at On the Rocks. Join host Ryan Jesperson at OTR's Rock and Bull Super Party.
Tickets only $30 and include
Guaranteed seating,
a team t-shirt,
prepaid moosehead,
and an all-you-can-eat tailgate buffet.
Plus prizes each quarter.
And one person will take home $1,000 at the end of the game.
Rock and Bull Super Party, February 9th.
Tickets at OnTheRocksYEG.com.
I'm Rick Showers from No Bull RV. And I'd like to thank all the people who buy new RVs. Buying your RV new is the most generous thing you can do to help your fellow man. Every year, thousands of people just like you go to the RV show or walk into a new RV store, pay full price, take great care of it like you always do, and then eventually sell it to us. And of course, we pay you market value for your used RV.
But that's tens of thousands less than you paid for it.
That's right, Bob. Could be half of what you paid for it when it was new. And it's still in great shape. So who gets the benefit of that reduced value? Our customers, that's who.
No Bull customers never pay full price for an RV because we only buy used.
Right again, Bob. So we'll enjoy the same RV you have now, only we pay like half as much. And it's only possible because you generously decided to pay that higher price when you bought it. So thanks again to all the new RV buyers, and we'll see you in a few years.
And that's No Bull.
NobleRV.ca.
Bringing every project to life requires the right team. By joining the Japa Machinery Group service or sales teams, you can be part of setting a new industry standard. Celebrating a legacy of excellence with Japa. Learn more at japamachinery.com.
Portions of this hour brought to you by Cantork. We offer sale, rental, repair, and calibration of pneumatic, battery-powered torque wrenches, stud tensioners, and flange maintenance equipment. Order today at cantork.com.
The Jason Gregor Show, the best of Edmonton sports talk and beyond. This is Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
.345. Welcome back. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley, Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Hope you're having a lovely day. Of course, Oilers Canucks tomorrow. You have NFL playoffs coming up this weekend, and it should be awesome as we get to our NFL report. Brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling. They are hiring right now for new construction, HVAC installers, and plumbers. You get a starting bonus for the right candidate. Also, strong benefits, RRSP matching, tuition reimbursements, and of course, competitive wages. So check it out now at legacyheating.ca. As the Commanders, probably the biggest surprise of the Final Four teams, but they've earned it. No question about it, as they make their first conference appearance in over 30 years. David Harrison from Sports Illustrated, Commanders reporter, joins us. And, David, hey, full marks for the Commanders. 2 big wins, both coming on the road thus far, and the biggest one against Detroit, the top team in the AFC. Now, I know that they were banged up, but still, you dropped 45 points on them. That is, what was the most impressive part of that win in your eyes?
I mean, I think just the ability to kind of just battle back and trade punches with a heavyweight. It goes back to maybe a month ago. Dan Quinn was kind of asked, what's the next step for this team right now, as impressive as they have been. And he said, well, the key to being considered among the heavy hitters is you got to start beating heavy hitters. And that was before the Philadelphia Eagles game, the second Eagles game. And obviously, the Commanders bring the Eagles in. They defeat the Eagles. So that's the first of the heavy hitters. Then they take out the NFC South champions in the wild card round. And then they take out the NFC North in the number 1 seed. And I think that game ultimately, it's the third one of that bunch. But it just kind of showed that, not only can this team play with the best in the league, they can beat you if you aren't on your game. And, certainly the Lions made some mistakes. Jared Goff, airmailing a pass that leads to a pick six. Certainly is that. But, you have to give credit to the Commanders' defense as well, because, being in the right place is part of that. And something schematically that they had worked on during the week ahead of the Lions game is allowing the middle of the field defenders to rally around the ball during those intermediate passes, so you don't end up giving up something big behind you. And you see safety Quan Martin on that play not get too aggressive on a shorter pass in front of him, and instead he kind of holds up a little bit, allows those middle of the field defenders to do their job. And because of it, when the pass gets airmailed, he's in the perfect spot. A lot of safeties crash down on that route. And if he crashes down on that route, there's a good chance that ball goes over his head as well. So, as much as that looks like a play where Jared Goff just gave the ball away, there's scheme, there's coaching, and there's a mentality behind Quan Martin being in the same spot. It's not just that he happens to have his cleats there. So, I think the ability to do that, and you look at Jalen Hurts this weekend, I mean, he's got a pretty decent turnover-worthy play percentage for a starting quarterback in the league right now. So if that team can be in the right place when those opportunities come up too, then potentially they can get a takeaway against the Eagles. It's not something that they've done yet. The Eagles haven't turned the ball over yet this postseason. But obviously, if the Commanders can get 1 or 2, it would go a long way to them getting the upset.
And you look at Jaden Daniels, and there was talk, but man, not nearly as much hype around him as other QBs. And maybe that's a good thing, because he's just come in and just performed very well. He had a little bit of an up and down, I don't know what it was, week 4 to 6 or what, I can't remember what week it was. But overall, his season has been a really nice progression. And when I watch in the playoffs, where the game is obviously more intense and more physical, he almost looked more poised in that game than he did in the regular season at times.
Yeah, no, the development and growth of Jaden Daniels as a leader on the field has been really impressive. And I think that, that's really kind of part of his game that I don't know that we really expected to see in year 1. I think that's more so kind of a year 2 thing that we probably expected to see. You knew the athleticism was there, the arm talent, certainly playmaking ability, but the fact that he's now turned into really the bona fide leader of this Washington Commanders team has been very impressive. And it's not just from his mentality and the poise and the calmness that he kind of lets trickle down to the rest of the guys in the roster, but it's also in his taking control of games. You talk about that last month of the season when his team is struggling. Maybe they're struggling to find targets or connect on passes or get the run game going with the running backs. He takes it upon himself to get the energy going and to make plays. And, it's why he finished the regular season as the team's leading rusher, but also as one of the more exciting passers in the league as well. And yeah, I think it's that impressive. And, I mean, look, he's definitely in the conversation of, this offseason, we're going to have the conversation of whether or not he's the best quarterback in the NFC, and it's pretty quick for him to rise up those ranks. I'm sure that some people are going to have some other guys ahead of him, but, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a quarterback that's not at least as effective for his team than Jane Daniels is in the NFC. And then, obviously, the AFC with guys like Mahomes and Allen, Lamar Jackson, he's got a little ways to go before you can start putting him in those categories. But getting to the top of his own conference is the first step.
Yeah. The run defense, let's be honest, this Philadelphia offensive line is dominant. The best O-line in the league. Now, Washington's got a good D-line, but if you look at this matchup, how concerned are you, David, about the D-line matching up against the O-line of the Eagles?
I'm really not concerned, but I think it's also a matter of expectation. Saquon Barkley put up a lot of rushing yards on this defense both times he's played them, and I don't expect Saquon Barkley to be silent in this game. I think Saquon's going to have a major role in this game, and I think that if you're the Washington Commanders, as much as you want to go out there with a mentality of we're going to stop him every time he touches the ball, you just kind of have to understand he's the best running back in the league for a reason, and that's just not going to be something that happens 100% of the time. The key is being able to withstand the big punches that he lands for the Eagles offense. Last time these two teams faced off, I think Saquon ran for, 125 yards in the first half and then had another 25 yards the entire game. Those aren't, don't quote me on those numbers, but they're pretty close to what happened. So, the key there is obviously in the first half, very dominant, but in the second half, they're able to kind of trap down, lock him down a little bit, force the rest of the Eagles offense to do enough to keep the lead that they had going into that second half. And fortunately, they weren't able to, and the Commanders were able to come back and win that game. So it's not so much a matter of can you stop Saquon, it's a matter of can you make sure that when Saquon does get those big hits on you, that they don't strike so hard that it leads to you losing the game.
When you look at schemes, and we've seen them run by everybody, to me, the most concerning stat for anybody is that Saquon Barkley leads the NFL in 2.7 yards before contact, meaning his O-line creates some space. And then a guy like that gets some speed. Well, that's what happened last game. All of a sudden, he bursts, gets one look and hits the hole, and it's 88 yards. Good night, Irene. Do you see the Commanders' run defense being able to limit the big plays? Because they gave up, I think, in the regular season, the third most rushing yards.
Yeah, they gave up the third most rushing yards, per game. Rushing yards per carry, obviously, are pretty high there, too. But again, it comes back to chunk plays. Unfortunately, coming into this game, if you look at the Detroit Lions game, they gave a lot of explosive runs to a guy like to Jahmyr Gibbs.
Right.
David Montgomery in his game back was able to get, I think, a couple of explosive runs on them as well. So there's certainly, reason to be concerned there. But the good news is this team, as much as they talk about trying to not so much lean on the first two games of experience playing against them, they do have that experience, and they kind of understand how it is the Eagles like to run the ball, where Saquon Barkley really likes to do his damage. And they understand, from that, especially that second half and that Week 16 win, that, the key is being gap disciplined, hitting your fits correctly and holding your point of the attack if you're on the defensive line and not allowing yourself to get pushed out of the play. Sometimes it's easier said than done. Obviously, like you mentioned, that offensive line is very dominant and good at what they do. But at the same time, I think a big part of this game is going to be that injury to Jalen Hurts. When the Commanders were able to kind of lock down on Saquon in Week 16, Jalen had left the game. Kenny Pickett came in. Kenny can certainly run the ball a little bit in his own right, but he's not as athletic as Jalen Hurts. And so if Jalen is not as athletic as Jalen Hurts is this weekend, then that's going to allow them to do a little bit more of that, despite the fact that Jalen will still be in there. And so we'll see how that factors in. But yeah, that's the key. And you go back to that Week 11 loss where the Commanders actually had the lead in the fourth quarter, and there was a second, third, fourth down series there where they ended up. And if they convert on that drive, on that 4th and 2 play, they actually, next gen stats says they actually have north of a 55% chance of winning that ball game. They don't convert, give the ball back. I think it was 2 snaps later, Saquon Barkley breaks loose for an explosive touchdown run, and from that point on, the Eagles basically.
Quickly, give me your thoughts on the Chiefs-Bills. Who do you like?
To one side of the field, and then when Saquon cuts back, they're out of position, unable to contain him. So it's just not being smart, being disciplined. The good news is the problems that came up against the Lions that led to Jahmyr Gibbs having all that success are part of their offense that the Eagles don't necessarily have. Kellen Moore is a little bit more straightforward, not as much misdirection. So in theory, it's a little bit easier to do. Against the Eagles versus the Lions is a little bit harder to stay in your gaps because those linemen, like you just mentioned, can really move some people out of the way.
Quickly, Chiefs, Bills, who do you like and why?
That's a hard one. I think, your gut has to lean Chiefs if you're being honest, just because it just seems like they're just destined to do it. But I like what Josh Allen has done. I like that he's really taking control of that Bills team. I think that defense is a little bit underrated, and I think that if the Bills can keep that score down below 24 points, they definitely have a chance to knock the Chiefs out.
Well, it should be a great weekend of football, David. Really appreciate your time. Have a great day.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Thank you.
There you go. That's David Harrison joining us. Now, here's the concern. When you say, well, the Commanders run defense, they're susceptible to big plays. That's like the worst thing as a matchup for the Eagles because you got Saquon Barkley. That's what he just did. That's what he's done all year long. He can go, 4 yards, 5 yards, boom, big game. And now the Commanders had the 5th best pass defense in the league, but we're third worst in rush yards. It's not a great matchup for them. And that to me is going to be the key. Like they scored 45. So that'll be the other one. Can their offense match and go toe to toe with the Eagles? Maybe I honestly think if Washington wins, they kind of have to win another high scoring game. I don't think their defense can slow down the run game enough. That's how I view it. Now, do I think we're going to see another 70 plus points? It'd be great, but probably not. But I think if Washington's going to win, they're probably going to have to win more of a high scoring game. I don't think their defense, especially the way it's constructed against the running attack of the Eagles, is going to be able to slow them down. Very few teams have been able to do it. When we come back, we'll talk about building a winning culture with Richmond in the business of sport. But I think we're going to be on a topic that I can tell you we've never really discussed on the show before. And I think there's some people going to think, oh, that shouldn't matter. And there are going to be other people that say, hey, you know what? Makes a lot of sense. We'll get an expert on the psychology of it and how you implement it. Next. The Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca after Connor Halley and a Sports 1440 update brought to you by Fountain Tire. Get where you need to go this winter with the mid-winter tire clearance. We can save up to 20% off all in-stock winter tires, including all premium brands. Complete details at fountaintire.com.
This is the Sports 1440 update.
Lighter night in the NHL. You've got the Bruins and the Devils. Jackets in Toronto. Avs host the Jets and the Panthers taking on the Los Angeles Kings in the association. Some news coming down. The Miami Heat plan to suspend poor Jimmy Butler for 2 additional games. On the court, you've got the Suns and the Nets. Cavs travel to Houston. Grizz taking on the Hornets. Jazz in OKC, and the Kings hosting the Warriors. Bucks, Pelicans postponed due to snow in New Orleans. In the AJ1 game tonight, Port Mac hosting Grand Prairie. That'll get going at 7:30. And in the PWHL, you got the Toronto Settlers in Boston taking on the Fleet Puck Drop just after 5. From the NFL, the New York Jets have hired Aaron Glenn to be their next head coach. Glenn, formerly of the Detroit Lions, as their defensive coordinator. And the general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trent Baalke, out after he failed to land second interviews with 3 of their top coaching candidates. Coming up in hour 3 of the Jason Gregor Show with another edition of the Business of Sport with longtime NHL player agent Rich Winter. I'm Connor Halley. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
Sports 1440, a Stingray radio station. CKJR broadcasts from West Edmonton Mall and Wetaskiwin.
Download the free Stingray music app and listen wherever you go.
Some might like to play hide and seek or even that Where's Waldo game. But out of sight, out of mind is never something GS Construction ever says. Yes, what's underground might be out of sight for everyone, but it's never out of mind for GS Construction because it's not fun and games ensuring Edmonton's underground infrastructure works for you. We take our job very seriously, and even though we may look like we're pretending to be groundhogs, we're really keeping things running smoothly. To find out more, including new job opportunities, visit gsconstruction.ca.
A premier hockey solution with a clear path for long-term development is proud to be entering its 8th season of independent borderless hockey, featuring provincial and cross-province competition with showcase-style regular season gameplay and a strong commitment to individual skill development. It's an attractive option for those seeking family life balance. The Hockey Super League offers opportunities for both male and female athletes born between 2012 and 2017. Visit hockeysuperleague.com for more information.
Oodle Noodle origin. In 1864, Francis Oodle took over his dying father's business as a leatherman. He was quite proficient, but his heart was never truly in the trade. After his father's death, Oodle met a cocksure young man named Vladimir Nudel, who was a trailblazer in the popular new art of food boxes. They formed a partnership and aimed to ply their trade in the new world. At Ellis Island, Nudel was renamed David Noodle, and henceforth, the franchise has been known as
Oodle Noodle. You've got a go-to coffee spot, a trusted barber, even a lucky game day jersey. But when it's about looking your absolute best, there's only one name you need: Mr. Dirk. Family run since 1939, we're experts in crafting impeccable tailor-made suits and offering a wide variety of everyday styles. Pair that with personalized one-on-one fittings and the convenience of on-site tailoring. Mr. Dirk elevates your style game. Visit our Edmonton store or explore MrDirk.com. Score big on style with Mr. Dirk.
We're Johnson, whoa. We're proud to be local and family home. Outdoor experience to speak for the We're Johnson, whoa. Striving to bring you a comfortable home. We're Johnson, whoa.
Stressed over holiday bills? Breathe easy, because with Cross Mitsubishi, you're secure and stress-free for up to 6 months. That's right, you'll make no payments for up to 6 months. Plus, Mitsubishi's 10-year, 160,000-kilometer limited warranty is the best in the industry. So when you're sitting behind the wheel, Cross Mitsubishi is standing behind you. Cross Mitsubishi. Drive your ambition. See Cross Mitsubishi in store for details. 9605 34th Ave and at crossmitsubishi.ca. Hockey is back, and Play Alberta, Alberta's #1 sportsbook and official partner of the Edmonton Oilers, has you covered with bigger offers, boosted odds, live betting, player props, and more. New to Play Alberta? New players now receive $200 in free bets just for signing up. You already play? Get a $10 free bet for every $100 you bet every week all season long. Visit playalberta.ca and make your picks today. Bonus terms and conditions apply.
Cold, icy mornings, frozen windshield, snow in the forecast, and your vehicle won't start. You know what that means, Alberta. Winter is here. Don't get left out of the cold. Head to Napa Auto Parts today to gear up for the frosty months ahead. Winter won't wait, and neither should you. From premium batteries, starters, and alternators to high-quality wiper blades, antifreeze, and snow brushes, Napa Auto Parts has everything you need to get your vehicle winter ready and running. With over 85 locations in Alberta, stop into your local Napa store or visit NapaCanada.com for all your trusted parts, tools, equipment, and automotive needs. That's Napa Know-How.
Portions of this hour brought to you by Leading Edge Physio. The team in Old Strathcona have special training dedicated to reducing the impact of cancer care before, during, and after your diagnosis. From lymphedema to the management of fatigue and side effects of chemotherapy and radiation, they can help. Learn more at leadingedgephysio.com.
The Jason Gregor Show, the best of Edmonton sports talk and beyond. This is Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Welcome back. Wednesday afternoon, Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X. It is the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Wednesday afternoon, and of course, it's time now for another edition of the Business of Sports with longtime NHL agent, Rich Winter. Join us. Rich, how you doing?
Good day, Jason. A lot of busy days. Started about 4:30 this morning, so be glad to get home.
Yeah, well, hey guys, come fix Rich's camera over there. So we'll get it so it's actually has him in the frame.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
maybe it's not a good idea.
Yeah, well, that's true too. So that'll be a little bit better. So there you go. Now, today I know you do a lot of reading, as do I, and in the business of sports, what we're going to talk about, because we're going to have Matt Demosic joining us in the next segment. But today on the show, you've kind of looked into, lots of things that go into building a championship team. And, there's obviously in the game of hockey, there's still a semblance of luck, no question. I know people have talked about that, but there's lots of other elements that go into it. And something we've never really talked about on our show. I've talked about it in different elements and the importance of it in your family life and different things like that. But you really wanted to bring up an idea that you feel maybe gets overlooked specifically in the building of NHL teams.
Well, I think it gets overlooked entirely in the NHL in general, but I think it's something that hasn't been overlooked in the great dynasties that have reared their head in the NFL, NBA, the last number of years, and in college sports over the years. So I think there's a foundational element to what builds great teams, what knits them together, and what creates the synergy that ultimately leads them to being successful. And it starts with a coach that has values that drive this. And there's really one value that I've found over the years. I was lucky to go to UCLA and spend some time with Coach Wooden, met Steve Kerr, coach in Golden State. I've talked to a number of great players. My first contract I ever worked on with as a young man was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's last contract in LA. So I spent some time with Kareem talking about his coach Wooden, got to know Chris Chelios, met Michael Jordan a number of times, talked about Phil Jackson. And there's one element that all of these players and many other players that I've read about and researched that they define as really the foundational element as to why they were successful. And most people won't think of the one word that every single one of Coach K, Steve Kerr, John Wooden, Pete Carroll, and others define as their players define as the sole single element that drove what they did. And that's love. They knew that their coaches loved them. And what comes with love, it's a deep and meaningful understanding of the people that are under your stewardship. As a parent, you run into a lot of difficult challenges. Most of us do with our kids.
Yep.
And you work through them because you love them. And if you love your players, they know it, they feel it, they'll drive through the wall for you. But more importantly, they knit together with their teammates in a way. I like what Phil Jackson put it. He said, I love what I do as a coach because I get the opportunity, and he had it 11 times, obviously, the opportunity to see a bunch of young men knit together by their relationship, by the compassion they have with each other, and to watch them accomplish something collectively that they could never do on their own. That's the magic. That's the magic that drove Phil Jackson, and it's the magic that drove John Wooden. And I think we're missing it. And especially if we don't change the way we do things in hockey, it doesn't filter down to the kids, where we see a lot of grooming. We see a lot of people who are interested in sports for reasons other than the sports themselves, filtering their way into it because we're scared to talk about love. We're scared to talk about, I love a lot of my players. They're like family. And, but we as men don't express that.
Right.
But people like John Wooden expressed it in the way that they conducted themselves, And
I think at times, some people view love as in a weird way of somehow and it doesn't mean that you just because you love them doesn't mean you're not going to challenge them.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean you're not going to push them. It gives them the sense of comfort knowing that you won't abandon them when things go wrong, right? And you'll support them. And so I guess the question is, how do you feel the NHL, how can teams get a leg up? Because we've talked a lot about AI and analytics and how you can implement that and get an advantage. And 2, 3, 4% advantage can turn out to be a pretty significant advantage, right? Good drafting historically will help you way more than others. So what are the first steps that teams need to do this? And do you believe it comes from the manager? Does it come from the owner? Does it come from the head coach?
It can't come from any of them. They're not equipped to manage the mental part of the game. They're not trained in it. They don't understand it.
Okay.
And it's challenging when you see, because quite often what happens, I remember players in Montreal when I helped the retired players with a lawsuit they had against the NHL years ago. They used to jokingly say that we won 5 cups when Scotty was here, and if he wasn't, we might have won 9. And whether that's true or not, sometimes what happens is you get a coach in the East Coast League that had just a great group of players, right?
Right.
You and I could have coached it. Our kids could have coached, and they would have been 55-2 without him. Then they get a job at a higher level, and they got a pretty good group of players. Again, they do pretty well. And then they get into the NHL, but they're not hydrated with the skills that they need. I like what my friend Michael Gervais, who is the high-performance coach that helped Pete Carroll build the culture he had at Seattle, Steve Kerr's first visit after he got the job in Golden State. And they talk about hydrating coaches with the skills that they need to help players perform at what they call the messy edge, where competition, where championships are won and lost.
Right.
And it's what people don't understand about loving someone is you get to know them and you know how to motivate them. We talk about the game being 99% mental. I think it's 100% mental in some of the big games, but we don't teach it. And then you think about things like players who might struggle with the mental part of the game. They'll go quickly to the doctor to get their ACL looked at, their knees bothering, their hips bothering. They'll get all of that taken care of. Yet they'll go home and have trouble with their mental state and lie in bed and see if they can fix it. And at the end of the day, when we say that's the most important thing, why not deal with it? And if you look at any other business, a high level middle manager, a senior vice president, which is what the equivalent of what a coach would be, you provide them with training and development. We have given none of our coaches in the National Hockey League that I am aware of the training they need to understand these skills. And these skills shouldn't be populated for soft and gentle reasons, warm and fuzzy reasons. They should be populated because it will help you motivate players. It will help you win. It will help you knit your teammates together. And John Wooden, by way of example, he talked to his players. Some of his mantras included, you cannot live a perfect day, guys, unless you learn to do something for someone else who can never repay you, right? Coach Wooden insisted that his players, when they left the building, left the dressing room that they came into cleaner than when they left. They learned to show respect for others around them, for each other. So what we need to do is we need to give the coach the skills. I think George Mumford, who's a fabulous guy, was the best hire the Oilers have made in a number of years. George has worked with Kobe, he's worked with Michael, gives him a lot of street cred in the room, but I think he was able to help the guys get a little bit better understanding of the game, use some of the Phil Jackson techniques that he actually helped implement when he was there in Chicago with Phil Jackson. And I think it made a big difference in the way that they conduct themselves. And I don't know how much it contributed to them getting to the finals or to this Game 7, but it certainly didn't hurt. So we need to teach these guys, because I look at, there's 2 types of coaches in the National Hockey League. There's the guy you don't want coaching your children. And hopefully he'll get weeded out over time. And we're seeing more and more of that happening. But there's a bunch of other guys who are really good guys, but they don't know how to motivate. They're in a position they got elevated to without any skills, and they're scared to say, I don't know if they'd admit it, but they're scared to say, I don't really know how to do this, because they're supposed to know. They're the head coach of an NHL team.
Right.
And yet they're missing out on the most important. I remember the first time I met Coach Wooden, a friend of mine, Andy Hill, played for Coach for a long time, and he was setting up the meeting. It took 7 months to get the meeting. Why? He had a meeting lunch date scheduled for 7 months, because that's how many people wanted to be with him because of the way he impacted their life. And that's the real reward. Coach would tell you, like the championships. I mean, but Coach won 10 NCAA championships. The last 12 years he was there, 7 in a row. He had 3 undefeated seasons. But he talks about the lunches he's had with Bill Walton and Kareem and Andy Hill. That's the value of sport. For me, I think of the things that have touched me the most is when I see someone like Marian Hossa, who I've come to love like a brother because of the quality of man he is, to have him sit up at the Hall of Fame and talk about the impact I had on his life. That's awesome. Now, the $65 million contract, irrelevant almost at that stage. And so we just need teams to understand, if they want to win, they need to learn the mental game or teach their players the mental game. They need to help knit those players together intellectually, physically and mentally. And if they don't, their chances of winning diminish. But more importantly, it's a salary cap world. People feel loved and respected. The wives treated with love and respect. They'll stay for a little less than they get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good business decision all around, but it's one that we're a little uncomfortable with in terms of talking to people. I mean, I don't know how many males or men are listening to this podcast who've told another man that they know how much they love them. They'll feel it. They know it, but we're a little intimidated to say it. And it's amazing when you tell someone in this sport, especially, how much you care for them, how that changes everything.
Rich Winter joins us in the business of sports. And you talked about the mental side, and we'll have Matt Demosa joining us in a second about that. But the importance, though, it sounds like, yeah, you want to help your players with the mental side, but as much as it should be about the coaches, should it not? Right? And the managers so they know the type of conversations to have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's what they need. They need training in this area. And Michael Gervais, and I think we should link to a couple of Michael's podcasts on your site afterwards, because his interview with Pete Carroll is illuminating, but the interview he did with Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr played for Greg Popovich and Phil Jackson. What better grounding to become a coach than to play for them? The first thing he did was go see Pete and Michael in Seattle and try and understand how Pete became so successful at multiple levels. And it's just a fascinating interview to listen to, because what Pete sent him home to do the first day after he had been observing for a day, go home, write down your values, the things that are most important to you, and bring them back, and we'll go over them tomorrow. They then ferreted out 4 of them, because Pete's view, and I think it's true, he said, if you don't coach to your values, you'll never be as effective as you could be, because you won't be seen by anybody in the room. They're not stupid. They know when you're authentic and when you're not. So understanding your values, living to your values, helps you elevate the people around you.
Did he say what his values were?
His are compassion, joy, respect, and competitiveness. Now, Pete, on the other hand, is big on love, but he's a competitor. Like, he turns everything. We're going to have Steve Hauska on, I think, in a few weeks, the kicker for the Seattle Seahawks when they won. And you'll hear about the fun they had. And I think with
yeah, so I like, because you make it, when you use the word joy in a lot of times is fun.
Yeah.
And if you have fun drills that bring out the competitive nature of the players, well, now you're touching on both of those at the same time. Your team's getting better because of the competition, but they're also having fun while doing it, right? Like, it's not just like, I got an email the other day from a person telling me about a WHL team who starts their practices with full on, as hard as you can, like physical contact battle drills every day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not really fun after a while.
No, you're tired. You're
right.
exhausted.
You're tired, but you don't want to just hammer your teammates time and time again while your coach and GMs watch. It's ridiculous. It's stupid.
Well,
and so it's something that, I'm trying to look into more, because if it actually is true, then it's something that needs to be talked about. But you can have competitive drills that are fun.
You talk to Coach Wooden's players, they were exhausted. They practiced the game at a little bit higher tempo than they would play it. Everybody in NCAA knew what UCLA was going to do before they came in the building, because they had a very simplified offense. They just couldn't stop it. And Coach would always leave practice with a really fun drill, right? Leave them with something to go home with and feel good about themselves. And I think that, the joy thing is pretty interesting, because when you think of players, how many players do you know are just holding my stick, I'm nervous, the coach, I make a mistake, the coach. And if they can be joyful, you go to Golden State practice and you'll see regularly when Steph Curry's running around doing his drills and things, and they all split off after practice, and they have individual nets and their own individual coaches. But because, this is where Steve was very lucky, Steve Kerr was, that his best player bought into his values. And you'll see Steph walking around dribbling the ball a lot of time, and, hey, Steve, if there's someone in there for a visit, look at me. I'm having joy. It's so great. I love this game. And we got into the game because it was fun.
Yeah.
And I think that the burden that you put on players when you can cut them later. You can sit them on the bench. Coach Wooden used to say he brought a really close friend with him every day to every single game, called the bench. He had no trouble putting a guy on there if he wasn't doing his job.
Right.
But they understood how much he cared about him, and that wasn't necessarily punishment. It was simply recognition that a man that loved them very much was holding them accountable. And that's the difference between, and people talk about Bill Belichick. If you look up quotes on Bill Belichick's players on love, now Bill had a completely different way of going about it.
Right.
He wasn't warm and hugging you, and I'm not sure Phil did any of that either, but they knew in the conversations they had with them that he wanted them so desperately to be as good as they could be.
Yeah.
And, he might not be the guy you invite to, the party at home, because he won't be the most dynamic guy in the room, but they knew that he cared about them. And the way he evidenced that, it was the work he put in to help them with their individual games. And we just miss that. Coaches are too busy. X and O's important, not as critical as the mental game. Everybody's got the X and O's,
Yeah,
right?
I would agree. So when we return, we are going to talk to a psychologist, Matt Demoisek, about instilling that and maybe just some of the easiest, simple steps on how to start it, right? Because any conversation or any change in what you want to bring, and this could even work for your amateur team that you coach, right? And in any sport, it's irrelevant what the sport is when you're talking about things like this and how it can help. That's coming up next on The Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. It's the business of sports. Gregor and Rich Winter.
Adventure just doesn't stumble into your life. It roars to life with Riverside Motorsports. Carrying up trails or cruising the open road. Yamaha ATVs, side-by-sides, motorcycles, and dirt bikes deliver the performance you crave. Built for thrills, ready for your next adventure. Yamaha's legendary performance and reliability take you there. Make Mother Nature your playground on a Yamaha from Riverside Motorsports. Located on St. Albert Trail. RideRiverside.com. Riverside Motorsports. What you do for fun is our business.
The job isn't done until the last load is hauled, and having a semi-trailer out of commission is not an option. Whether replacing or adding to your convoy, Edmonton Trailer has a huge inventory of new and used semi-trailers, trusted by the gravel, logging, oil field, fluids, and freight industries. Find a trailer right for you online or at one of their 3 locations. For sales, service, parts, rental, and finance, when you're in it for the long haul, Edmonton Trailer.
You don't know what awaits you on the road to come, but with the 2025 XC90 from Volvo of Edmonton, you'll have the versatility to take on whatever life throws at you. The new XC90, a luxurious SUV with seating for up to 7, boasts newly upgraded body and wheel design. It's the perfect choice to drive into the coming year. And right now, you'll save $4,500 and lease from 1.49% on all in-stock 2025 XC90s. Volvo Cars Edmonton. VolvoCarsEdmonton.com, 1205 101 Street Southwest.
Just when the weather is freezing your nosy, someone's got a new menu that's tasty and cozy. What? It's Booster Juice. Now you can warm up and chow down with a savory selection of grilled fresh favorites. Breakfast wraps, chicken wraps, grilled cheese, steak, and chicken paninis. Topped with melty cheese, creamy pesto, spicy chipotle, grilled fresh options made in-house, warm and delicious. Made daily with the finest ingredients. Cozy comfort food at Booster Juice. Download the Booster Rewards app today.
Sunday, February 9th. The biggest game of the year. On 30 TVs.
Only at On the Rocks. Join host Ryan Jesperson at OTR's Rock and Bull Super Party.
Tickets only $30 and include
Guaranteed seating,
a team t-shirt,
prepaid Moosehead,
and an all-you-can-eat tailgate buffet.
Plus prizes each quarter.
And one person will take home $1,000 at the end of the game.
Rock and Bull Super Party, February 9th.
Tickets at OnTheRocksYEG.com.
McDonald's presents a hockey showdown like never before. McDavid versus Matthews. There can only be one winner, competing for all the glory and all the prize. The new menu features top shelf plays like the Smoky Quarter Poppy and the Big Mac David, so everybody scores, with even more delicious options like the Spicy Junior Chirpy. Now that calls for a silly Sunday. The Showdown menu, now available at McDonald's.
Portions of this hour brought to you by On the Rocks. Watch every Oilers game at OTR with $5.25 Molson Canadian, $5 Pink Whitney shots, and 60-cent wings. Plus, play Oilers score and win for your chance to win On the Rocks gift cards. Oilers hockey at OTR. Book your table today. Jasper Ave and 118th.
From puck drop to kickoff, It's the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
.425. Welcome back, Jason Gregor. Rich Winter with you here on the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, where you can get in the game. Use the promo code Gregor50 and get a free $50 play at PlayAlberta.ca. Oilers back in action tomorrow, taking on the Vancouver Canucks. Canucks, according to their head coach, very disappointed. And when the coach brings out the disappointed, doesn't rant or rave, I think that always gets the players' attention more. Just like any kid, when your dad or mom is just like, I'm very disappointed in you. That one hits rather than just like freaking out. You almost wish they'd rather yell at you sometimes. But when they do, they're very calm. I'm disappointed in you. Ooh, that one seems to hit a little bit deeper. So maybe we'll ask about the psychology of that with our next guest. We're talking the business of sport today with Rich Winter. We're talking about the importance of love in sports and the organization and how you build that and foster it and culture it. And Rich has been around the NHL for 35 years and feels that a lot of organizations, no, there's been some for sure. He's got some examples we'll use later, but that it's something that is hard to get in. Specifically as simple as how many guys listening right now tell their friends, like, you might say, hey, buddy, I love you, give you a hug. But do you ever say why you love them? Like, think about it. It doesn't happen very often if we're being truthful, right? Like, it's you might say it in your relationship to your spouse. Even then, you might say, I love you lots, but you don't really say why you love them.
Or with that deep and meaningful resonance that makes them like pause for a minute, almost like, what's going on? You're like, it does really change the dynamic. And it is surprising that, people don't really understand the fuel that drives these great teams.
Yeah. Matt Demozic is a registered psychologist at Mind Buffs, and he joins us once again. Matt, welcome back to the show, man. How you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. I felt like a racehorse chomping at the bit, listening to you guys talk about all these things, because this is exactly what I love to talk about, and it's cool having these conversations on the air. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. And so Rich talked about, like, the need to educate coaches, first of all, and like how to have those conversations to do it. And I know you're a sports psychologist. You work with a lot of individuals on players and how to be mentally strong, right? Like deal with adversity and not focus on things that are out of control and all that. But this is very different, right? Like this is especially from coaches and maybe even players, because if you grew up as a player, maybe you didn't have a lot of love and you had a lot of, angst in your family. Sometimes it's hard for people to look at someone who really tells them they love them and not feel awkward. So how would you go about instructing coaches, whether it's pro or even at the minor level, to start to implement things that focus on a loving culture in the group?
Vulnerability is incredibly uncomfortable. Even when you look at your wife and you just try to say something nice to them, or in reverse, when someone tries to say something nice to you, you can kind of feel that, like that feeling in your chest, like, I don't want to fully accept it. Because vulnerability, especially for men, is like something we're almost allergic to. And so we grow up in sport, we grow up around other men, and we're told that to be a really successful, high-driven person, that there's no room for emotion. And the irony in all that is, when you simplify sports psychology down to its like root source, it's all about maximizing how I can get into flow state and how long I can stay into it, right?
Okay.
Yeah, the reason why we keep doing it. So flow state is like being in the zone.
Okay.
It's the reward that we get as athletes, as podcast hosts, as radio hosts, where if I do something X amount of times and I'm in a safe environment, I don't have to think about it. My brain just does it. It's that muscle memory. Right. And the irony is that you don't think yourself into flow state. You don't just like tell yourself the magic word and then you get into flow state. Flow state's a feeling state. When you're feeling the right way, when you're at the right level of emotional activation, that's how we get into flow state. And so, everything you guys are talking about being in a culture of like love and support, it makes a person feel emotionally safe to be able to get into their flow state. But that's hard in an elite sport because, to Rich's point, a lot of elite coaches, they play games. They try to pit the players at each other rather than generating like a competitive with culture. It's a competitive at culture. So there's a lot that coaches need to be educated on to understand how they can utilize psychology to bring the best out of their players.
And is it more difficult to do that? Because, in some cases, like, you got a dressing room of 18 to 20 players, and to try to bring that, well, someone might feel it like love. The other person might, as you mentioned, feel all uncomfortable about it. So like, is there an initial step you'd recommend to take to start the process?
100%. So I think the reason why Rich had referenced the Steve Kerr podcast with Michael Gervais is that they talked about like what those initial steps were to be able to like feel confident about the vision that Steve had as a coach to build that culture. As a coach, as a leader, as a parent, you need to know what your values are, because the values are what guides you. It's the direction that you're going in. And so if you can bring other people on board to share in those values, you're not going to make everyone happy. That doesn't mean that everyone's always happy and content. There's going to be difficult conversation. There's going to be boundaries that need to be set. But when everyone can buy into that shared vision of like, this is the direction that we're going and this is how we're going to do it, then you don't even have to control those variables. You have this entire army of people who are working together to kind of see those goals come through. I mean, that's why team sports are so addictive, because there's also group flow state. And that's way more powerful than individual flow states. So it's a lot of fun.
So, and that was the next question, because you work with individuals, but there's so much emphasis on the team, right? Nobody's above the team. Everybody has to fit in whatever their role is. And, in hockey, hey, you're not on the power play, but you might be a penalty killer, shot blocker. And that's a huge, important role, but it doesn't necessarily get the, outside the room, the same thing. So group flow is something that I find fascinating, because you say it's more fun in a way. Why is it? And is it harder to get into group flow than an individual flow?
In group flow state, it's that moment where every single person that is committed to the goal is putting everything they have towards it. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to think about it. It's just something that you feel with the people around you, that everyone is committed. And as Steph Curry said about his coach, Steve Kerr, like, I would run through a wall for my coach. It's that feeling that I will give everything I have to complete this mission as a group. And the only way to do that is to ensure that each individual on the team has a sense of pride and ownership over like what their role is. Like, one of my huge pet peeves, and this happens even at the NHL level, is for some reason, like, coaches think that it's a good idea to wait until the last possible second to tell which goalie is getting like the starting position. Why? Why is that a thing? Why do they do that? Like, tell them, give them time to prepare, let them know that like, I trust you, I believe in you, and like, let's go do this thing. Why does that happen, guys?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just it's just interesting because, Matt, if you don't, we all know the selfish player, the guy that won't pass, he shoots in the empty net, he doesn't pass. That creates a real dysfunctional element in terms of trying to accomplish flow. And it's really interesting. I remember Coach Wooden talking to a player that I know very well when he was playing and saying, you know what, I want you, every single time you get a basket, I want you to acknowledge the guy that passed it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Point to him. I want you to smile at you. I want to look at him. And he always said to the player, and one player said, well, coach, what if he's not looking? He said, don't worry. If he's not looking, I will be.
I love that. The moment where I knew I wanted to become a sports psychologist, because the original plan was I thought I was going to be a professional coach and kind of work my way up through the ranks that way. In the gold medal game of U16 AAA, I was coaching a CAC team. And we were at the gold medal game, and there was a player on my team who, year after year after year, he's always the last guy picked. He's always playing at the highest level, but always the last guy, right? That 13th forward kind of guy. And for some reason during provincials, he just found this whole other level. He was playing out of his mind. And so I was double shifting him like all of the time. And in the gold medal game, when we were up 3-0, maybe there was like 5 or 6 minutes left in the game, he's exhausted. I have been putting him on any time I could get him on the ice. And he turns around and he looks at me and he's like, coach, like, why are you playing me so much? It's because you're worthy. It's because you're good enough. You've earned it. And like his whole team like hugged him on the bench during the provincial game. And why that stands out to me is that when I turned to the right, I looked at the other bench, and the coach on the other team had been yelling and screaming and swearing and just drilling into his team. And it was like my team in front of me hugging each other, crying on the bench with 5 minutes to go in the gold medal game, and the whole other team looking at what was happening on my bench. And I could just feel the paradox between how different those two experiences were. And I was like, this has got to change.
And, you know, it's a fascinating thing because I look at minor sports and you know, hockey parents are crazy. No, I can go hockey. So you can find any sport where you have some people get too emotionally wrapped up in their son or daughter's sporting activities. And you have some parents or some board members on the association that are the same way. And winning becomes the focus point over everything else. And hey, winning's fun. Don't get me wrong. People love to win. So talking about it from an amateur sports level where it's not their job, right? Now you don't get as much time with them either. But if you looked at amateur coaches and minor, and I don't care if you're AA or if you're tier 6, how can you start and what would be some paths or directions that coaches should take to start to implement this that would likely allow to more success outside of the X and O's? And of course you want to help them learn how to skate or stop or start. I get all that, right? But where does that part come in, Matt? And how can amateur coaches help it, at the young ages, whether it's 9, 10, 11, all the way up to U18?
No, that's the right question. We talk about it all the time here, at Mind Buffs, that it's actually the change we're looking for is going to happen if coaches make the change. We can only impact the team culture so much, but the coach has to be the one that drives that. And so when we work with coaches, whether it's in our group like workshops or like one-on-one, the first thing we have to discover is like, what is the personal barrier that coach has to being more vulnerable with their players? Is it because of their definition of masculine, their definition of success? Is it because, emotions were a negative experience growing up because they only ever saw the dark side of it rather than like the loving side of it that you were talking about, Rich? We need to figure out like, what is our personal barrier to building connections with our players? Because once a player has bought into like being a part of a team and playing for a coach, they will literally do anything for you. So the success you're looking for, the wins that you want as a coach, the most advantageous thing is to discover like, what is the part of me that might be getting in the way of me building stronger relationships with my players? And then from there, you can kind of build that value system and your coaching philosophy. But we're all going to have baggage from childhood. We're all going to have baggage from our own coaches from when we played hockey. So you need to figure out like, what is that one thing getting in the way of me communicating more openly with my players?
I think, Matt, one of the things, I don't know if you'd agree, is just not having the tools. They don't know what to do, so they're stuck and they don't know where to go, because it's tough being a coach because you're supposed to know what you're doing. You're supposed to know about leadership. So to admit that I'm kind of struggling here to the GM or to the owner or even to some of your better players in the leadership group, that's tough. It's pride comes into the way, and then they just don't get the help. And that's
not the coach's fault. Like that's the culture of, at least I'll just speak to hockey. That's the culture of hockey that for some reason, like hockey and organizations and parents expect coaches to know everything and to be able to do everything. And that's an impossible position to be at. It demands that a coach is striving for perfection to feel like they're doing a good job. And, to be bold, to actually say, I'm not sure how to do this. I don't know if we have a culture where a coach would be allowed to say that without all of a sudden everyone doubting their abilities as a coach.
And then one of the things
I am most interested in impacting is like educating coaches.
I would say, Matt, like one of the things I think in many of these coaches, the great coaches never talk about winning. Winning's a result. And I think if you change the focus, I want you to be the best of which you're capable. That's what we can do together. And it changes the focus from the individual very quickly. I loved one of Wooden's comments he used to make to coaches. He would go watch coaches have practice, give them advice, and they'd say, I thought you played the 3-5-9-2 offense. And he said, well, yeah, we do. And I've taught that to the guys. We've been working on it all year. And coach would always respond to that by saying, they're not doing it, but more importantly, coach, you need to understand, you have not taught until they've learned. Yeah. And that really flips it over, because you hear all these coaches, I don't know what's wrong with these kids.
Yes.
Like, geez, I've been hammering this all year. Well, that's not their responsibility. And once that responsibility shifts, Matt, then I think the players immediately start to feel the love. They feel the coach is responsible. Like what Coach Wood never talked about. He was never a coach in his mind. He was a teacher who had stewardship over some young men. It's a totally different perspective.
Like one thing I just want to say on that, this is one of my favorite parenting metaphors that I actually do like to bring into like leadership and coaching. Like as a parent, you're disillusioned if you think that you're an engineer of your child, that you can genetically, behaviorally engineer your child to be exactly who you want them to be. That's not going to happen. And if that's your goal, you're going to have a tough time. Your job as a parent, your job as a coach is to be a shepherd. What field does my kid, what field do my athletes need for them to be able to be at their best? So we need to set agendas aside as leaders. We bring our philosophy, we bring our vision and our values, but every year the players are different. I might have to change the way I approach things. I might have to change my systems. What I'm in control of is bringing the best out of my players. So we are shepherds, not engineers.
Well, Matt, I always use the example of, you have to, the hardest real love is when the kids are hard to love, right? I mean, we all experience that as parents.
God. Any coach will tell you, like, you got a few kids, anybody listening who's ever coached or teachers or parents, you got a few kids who you can tell them the drill 5 times, right? And their heads in the clouds and they don't pay attention. You're just like, oh my God, like it can be frustrating.
Well, I mean, I always use the example of Dennis Rodman, right? Dennis Rodman went and won, I think, 2 or 3 championships in Chicago. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And Coach Jackson just accepted Dennis as Dennis, so we had to give him a leeway. We had to integrate him into the group. We had to spend time with him and let him know we cared about him, no matter what erratic kind of behavior he admitted, because he's a heck of a member of the team and he did work hard with his teammates. And that work ethic inspired the rest of his teammates. I can only imagine, Matt, if a young Dennis Rodman had taken up hockey and walked into a Western Hockey League training camp, what would have happened? Wouldn't have mattered how good he was.
No,
he would have been out of there by noon. And that's
100% agree.
And that's a great metaphor, because ultimately those players, and we see it in New England, we see it in great cultures. They used to bring in players that had challenges because their culture was so strong that, and Satya Nadella, like when he took over Microsoft, he listed 3 things as critical to turning Microsoft around. One was a vision, which he had, pulling the team together that he needed, and he bought 85 companies, and having the culture to support it. They'd lost their way at Microsoft. So he brought Mike in after his experiences in sport to recreate the culture at Microsoft. Culture is important in your home. Culture is important at work. And culture is critically important to success in professional or amateur sports. People just don't understand that, because it's sort of like, it's just that last bit of progression that we need to make as sportsmen, right?
I completely agree. Yeah, no, there already is a model that exists. Like when we look at like Premier League soccer, most of those clubs hire a team of sport and performance psychologists so that there is support at the ownership level, support at the management level, and multiple different supports at both like the training staff and the player level. And so you have like these layers built in so that you have people who understand the brain more than anyone else to help them guide an incredibly difficult, powerful, well-known ship towards like what the goal is, to what their values are. And so we know that hockey's a little bit behind when it comes to incorporating those kinds of things.
Matt, we had Slater Kuko on a while back, Jason, and he talked about, because it's important that it's not just the coach. You create a culture of love, respect, and compassion. They take care of each other. Remember, Slater's comments was he loved Jonathan Toews because he included everybody in everything. Slater was just a piece, didn't play for, he was in the press box early on there for 10 or 12 games, still included in everything, made him feel part of it. So what teams need to do, Matt, is organization needs to hydrate the coaching staff and the leadership group with the skills they need. Because now you're not just relying on a coach. You're relying on a coach, an assistant coach, a goalie coach, a couple of trainers, 4 or 5 in your leadership group. And then a kid that's on the 4th line who has very little skill, but has a high level of emotional intelligence and drives a lot of what they do well. And that's when this is why they define love, respect, and compassion is so important, because when it's it's completely imbued throughout the whole culture of the team. It will drive them, like Phil Jackson says, to places they could never get on their own.
Rich, you just said something to me. It's fascinating, Matt. So in minor sports, specifically in hockey, the captain is usually, quote, the best player at 10 or 11, 12 years of age, right? Rich just said something that's fascinating to me. Emotionally mature. And a lot of the best players, they're the best player. They don't say much. I can kind of laugh about why we have a captain at the end of the day. They don't talk to the officials. What the hell is the point? But anyway, I look at it and say, they might be the best player, but they have no idea how to communicate to their teammates. Like, they can show you a really good work ethic, which is super important, but they might not have anything else. And so maybe in a lot of times the captain, like when the Edmonton Oilers rave about Lee Fogland, they never raved about his ability as a player.
Exactly.
It was Lee Fogland. They talked about how he's a father figure. He wasn't that much older than them, but he was like a father figure. And it seemed like he would have hard conversations and real conversations with them to understand, like, you have to be mature and you can't go party 24/7. But at the same time, you can still party a little bit because you're 20 and 21 and you're living the time of your life. And so I wonder sometimes, how can a coach, like, what are signs that you have some kids on your team that maybe are a little bit more, could be those emotional leaders for your group and can help, bring the culture that you want in your team, a loving culture? How do you find that out in young players?
The team already knows. You only have to be with the boys for a month before like, who's the guy on the team that's the glue guy. Who's the one who like cares about everyone, that can hang out with anyone in the locker room, outside the locker room. The players already know that. So the players just need to talk, or the coaches just need to talk to the players and ask them, like, who's the emotional captain of this ship?
Right.
Because it's also unfair to put that incredibly highly skilled player who might be the biggest introvert on the team.
Right.
It's unfair to put a C on that guy. He doesn't want, like, he might like the recognition of it, but he doesn't have the same extroverted, emotionally intelligent skills as like someone with a different personality. Put an A on him 100%, like recognize like his talent of and the value that he brings. But that captain should be someone who cares for the emotional culture of the team. That's an important skill. We know emotional intelligence, even in the workforce, is, according to Forbes magazine, the most valued skill to bring into the workforce going forward. So, but the players will tell the coaches, they know who that person is.
And just so listeners know, emotional intelligence is the ability to understand your own emotions and identify them in others so you can react to them. And I think the best indicator of who the captain should have been, and we all know this guy, he's 36, he's 37, he's 38, and they signed him for another year because he's good in the room, right? Because he understands and support players. That guy probably should have been the captain 10 years ago, but he was a fourth liner, so it didn't fit the mold.
Yeah.
Everyone wants, like you say, the skilled guy to be the captain, but it's just, again, it comes back to teaching the coaches the skills they need to identify those types of people.
Like, I look at a young Connor McDavid at 19 years of age, and I was like, why are they giving him the captaincy? He's the best player, but he doesn't need the C to motivate him to work harder, right? He could have been the Oilers finally gave it to Gretzky when Lee Fogland was like, I think now he's ready.
Yeah,
right?
I think we've seen Connor grow into a
100%,
really good captain.
Yes, but he didn't need to be at 19,
No,
right? There was no
didn't.
reason. You can't rush emotional intelligence. And Connor, if anybody who knows him, Connor's naturally more of an introvert than he is an extrovert, right?
Mhm.
Now, he cares about his teammates, he's super loyal to his teammates, all those sorts of things. But you're coming in, you got all this pressure. Now it's like, let's put the C on him. And I think organizations are like, well, let's put all the responsibility on him now, because if it doesn't work, well, he's the captain. I don't even know if they're consciously thinking that. Like, there was talk about Bedard being the captain, and I was like, what? That is the most idiotic thing I can think of, right? Like, because they're not even close. At least the Oilers had some decent players around and whatever, but that's just an example. And so I love, Matt, when you talk about it's unfair at a young level. You might have the best player. Now, if you want to acknowledge him, you can give him an associate captain, right, at 11 or 12. But the thing is, most kids always know, whether you're U10, U15, in the NHL, they know who the best players are, right? You don't need to ask them. Like, you ask them to rank it, they would rank it right away. So, it got me thinking about, the pressure of the captaincy and how you might be better off at a young age, A, maybe not to even have it, or B, find the emotional one and rotate it and get everybody an opportunity in the first month until the kids get to know each other.
It's funny because I have I only hang stuff up in my office from Hall of Famers, so players don't when they ask why they're not on the wall, it's pretty easy to address it. But I have
So
a jersey.
basically, you
But
show them who your favorites are.
No, but
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
you guys, you make the Hall of Fame, and your jersey goes right up beside Host's. But I have Host's jersey with an A on it.
All right.
He wore an A for a few weeks in Chicago when Duncan Keith was hurt. And
Right.
Marion never wanted an A.
Yeah.
And everybody on that team, everybody knows they hadn't won a cup for 60 years before he arrived, and they haven't won a cup, or they haven't won a playoff round since he left. He was the glue that sat with Patrick, sat with Jonathan, sat with those young kids. But it was, I always remember, the reason I put this particular jersey up in my office is because he went and he struggled a bit when they put the A on him. He went back to Quenneville and said, "Joel, can we get this thing off me, man? It's so heavy." But it's an interesting metaphor, because what Matt has said, now we know that the A itself isn't that heavy, but it is very heavy for the kid that's not ready, or in Marion's case, very mature guy, just a young man who doesn't want it.
Yeah.
He just is comfortable leading with example. I think you're better, Matt, to go off to say to your young superstar, "Look, we're relying on you for a lot of things. You just lead by example, and let Lee Fogelin handle the captaincy, because he's got a lot of time on his hands. He doesn't have interviews to do, and he's really attuned to the guys. He's been here longer. Give them the freedom to just be as good as they can
100%.
be. Sometimes giving them the captaincy is going to prevent them from being as good as they can be. You as a coach need to learn the skills to help identify that."
There are other ways to honor and acknowledge the contribution of a highly skilled player other than just putting a letter on their jersey.
Yeah. Well, Matt Demosic joins us. He, of course, is a registered psychologist. We're talking. We started the whole conversation. I want to get back to that before we wrap up. We were talking about, a key ingredient, and Rich talked about just love at the pro level, but even at the minor hockey level, and how you have to integrate that into your team, and I love, Matt, what you said earlier about, it starts with the coach, and the one thing the coach has to look at is, what is the part of me that's getting in the way of being more connected with my players? How, or maybe it's not allowing me to communicate as well as I would like. And I think that's the hard, because most coaches, I coach, I've never even thought of that question, to be honest, till you mentioned it. I was like, God, I got to think about that, because we all have biases. Yeah. Everybody has a bias. There's certain kids that you coach that you love for. I don't always love the best players per se, but you love the ones who try really hard, or maybe the ones who's always friendly or funny. And then there's the other kids on the other side that sometimes just like, oh, this kid frustrates the what out of me. And so do you have advice for coaches? Because I think any coach out there, any parent, any teacher, at certain times your kids frustrate the hell out of you too. But how can you get past that frustration and turn that, whatever that personality trait is of a player, into something that you as a coach can look past and kind of get?
Great question. Two things come to my mind. Like one, it's one of the very first things that we educate coaches in is like, have you laid clear ground rules that the players have all bought in to, and are they aware of like what the accountability is going to look like if they like break that team rule? And honestly, that should be done at an organization level so that it's just like consistent throughout. That way, like coaches don't feel like, especially ones who really care, they don't feel like they're being the bad guy for having to like discipline or consequence a player for not like following what the team rules are. So when you have that system built in, your players look to you as a coach to hold players accountable for not, following what those rules are. And you lose respect if you don't hold that line. So I would say, as a preventative measure, am I creating a system and values and rules that the team is all buying into, that we all know what the accountability system looks like? And secondly, the very first session that we do with players and coaches is we have the whole team, players, coaches, training staff, do a personality test. That way the coaches know who they're working with.
Right.
There are 4 different types of people when it comes to motivation, for example. There are people who are intrinsically motivated. They only care about their own values and their own expectations. We call them questioners. There's what makes up like half of the human race. We call them obligers. That's why we love them on team sports, because they're always going to do what other people want. Their motivation comes from making the teammates proud, from proving to the coach and their parents that they're good enough. Then there's these upholders who are very good at managing both the external and like internal expectations. And then there's me. I'm a rebel. There's not many of us. We're like 10%. We hate all expectations. We need to have this feeling of like freedom and autonomy to kind of find our own way as long as we're following the rules. But as soon as there's this pressure of like expectation, like Dennis Rodman 1000% was a rebel. You needed to give him the space for him to be himself. And even that small amount of information for coaching staff will immediately change the kind of language they use to inspire and motivate the players to buy into the system. So personality, you got to know your players.
And a lot of Dennis Rodman, if you read up on it, he got kicked out of his own house, right?
Yep.
He never really had love. Like he acted out a little bit, because if you look at him when he was a member of the Pistons, he didn't have the flamboyant hair or anything. It's as he got a little bit more confident, more of his personality had always repressed started to come out a little bit more. But a lot of it, he was a very insecure young man for the longest part of his life. And, he's talked about it in his book and other places. And so that's a hard thing, I would think, for minor coaches to, that's pretty deep to get into. And so,
well, I just want to follow up on what Matt said about accountability, because we see it all the time, coaches keeping, the fourth line accountable, nobody else. And it's just, it's really incongruent with any sensible form of values. But Barry Trotz told me once that he was convinced, I don't know what game it was, that they won the Stanley Cup at let's say it was game 47.
Right.
Because what happened at game 47, probably wrong on the date. What happened was Alex Ovechkin missed a team meeting and half a practice. So Barry went to Alex and said, you know the rule.
Yeah.
You're sitting tonight. And he said something to the effect, you have two choices. You can call Ted, the owner, you can make some fuss. Maybe he'll leverage me a little bit and get me to put you back in the lineup, or you can take it like a man. Sit upstairs, accept your punishment, and show this team that the rules apply to everybody. And Ovi, to his credit, went and sat in the press box for a game. And that's when, in Barry Trotz's mind, the Washington Capitals shifted
100%.
Point that led them to winning the Stanley Cup.
That moment is critical because the whole team now knows that they have a leader and a coach that they can fully trust and whose words are truth.
And a leader who takes responsibility, which leads them, Matt, to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it is. There are certain moments like that. Matt, one last one for you, because we always try to tie this into, we always talk a lot of pro sports, but I think, the minor sports level really matters. You work with coaches. Do you have any advice, for a coach who's looking to find, what are their limitations first? How do you go about finding out your limitations first as a coach that's going to help you become a better coach?
I would say, who knows you the best? And then ask them that question. What do you feel like are my limitations for me being a better communicator, more vulnerable, more open? There's definitely someone in your life that knows the answer to that question if you don't.
Ooh. And there might be more than you think that know that. Yeah, and the only one that doesn't know it is most often you.
Oh, yeah. And then the other thing is knowing it, but then changing it.
Yeah.
Right. Like that, to me, that's the hardest part. Like I know with my limit, I can get frustrated really quickly. And, and then sometimes I won't say anything and then it just builds up and then a Mount Vesuvius later. Right. I know that, but I don't know how to change it. Right. Like I think, I'll just be calmer. Well, that really hasn't worked.
Right. So like this, I won't go like too much into it, but this is where I would get all like technical in my industry is like, we would need to kind of find like, what is the limiting belief? What's the negative core belief? Is it, I'm not good enough. I have to be perfect. I'm a failure. Change can only happen when we're making that change at that subconscious level. So you might understand like the behavior that you want to change, and that's like negatively impacting people around you. You can try to change the behavior at the surface level as much as you want, but if you're not addressing the root of where that's coming from, that core belief, then change isn't going to happen. And for those of you that aren't quite sure what I'm talking about, go watch Inside Out 1 and Inside Out 2. It's exactly what I'm talking about.
Matt, thanks so much for this. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. A lot of fun.
Matt, thanks a lot.
That's Matt Demosic from Mind Buffs. And that was a real quick hour. We actually even blew through a break just because it was such a riveting conversation. And Rich, I love you bringing up this topic, and it's something that we're going to readdress, I think, in the future, because I don't think one show was enough. to focus on. And I know we have some stories about Lou Lamoriello that I think when I come back from holidays, we can touch on again, and Pete Carroll leading up to the Super Bowl and everything. But I think it's a really good starting point. We've got a lot of texts from people. Just, having the conversation here is just a way to start it, to just, think about the importance of love in an organization, obviously for your favorite pro franchise, and some of them have it. But even, if you volunteer and you're a coach at the whatever, you're coaching ringette, you're coaching soccer, you're coaching volleyball, what have you, and that importance to get a trust factor and love. And I think from a coaching perspective first, I love how Matt brought up the fact that you have to look within first and find out what your limitations are.
Yeah.
You get those, then you probably have a better chance to
I would think
improve the limitations of your
if
players.
everybody listening to this program took Coach Wooden's advice over the next course of the next couple of 3 weeks, this would change their life. Do one thing every day, guys, that for someone else who can never repay you. Look for that opportunity every day, and you'll get a sense of why Coach Wooden was voted the coach of the century by both ESPN and Sports Illustrated.
Rich, great stuff, my man. We will talk to you again on the Business of Sport. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks for having me. Good day.
That's Rich Winter. He joins us every Wednesday here on Sports 1440. Let's get to the Con Man Sports 1440 update, brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling. Home to no payments, no interest for 1 year on your furnace. You don't want it to break down, but if it does, they'll come and fix it. No overtime charges. LegacyHeating.ca.
This is the Sports 1440 update.
Late night in the NHL, just 4 games on the schedule getting going shortly. Got the Devils and the Bruins in at 5:30. Jackets taking on the Leafs at 7:30. The Avs host the Jets, and at 8 o'clock it wraps up with the Kings and the Panthers in the association. You got the Nets and the Suns. Pistons taking on the Hawks. Cavaliers in Houston. Grizzlies host the Hornets. Jazz take on the Thunder. And the Celtics in Los Angeles for a meeting with the Clippers. Bucks Pelicans postponed due to snow in New Orleans. In the AJ, Bonnieville hosting Grand Prairie. Camrose and the Knolls both get going at 7 o'clock. In the PWHL, the Ottawa Charge in Minnesota taking on the Frost. That one gets going shortly. And from the NFL, the New York Jets have hired Aaron Glenn as their next head coach. Meanwhile, the Jacksonville Jaguars hiring GM Trent Baalke. Coming up in hour 4 of the Jason Gregor Show, we'll be joined by Mark Spector of Rogers Sportsnet and Ask 5 Questions. I'm Connor Halley. This is the Sports 1440 update.
Sports 1440 in West Edmonton Mall and Wetaskiwin. CKJR is a Stingray radio station.
Download the free radio player app and listen wherever you go.
Hockey is back. And Play Alberta, Alberta's #1 sportsbook and official partner of the Edmonton Oilers, has you covered with bigger offers, boosted odds, live betting, player props, and more. New to Play Alberta? New players now receive $200 in free bets just for signing up. You already play? Get a $10 free bet for every $100 you bet. Every week, all season long. Visit playalberta.ca and make your picks today. Bonus terms and conditions apply.
McDonald's presents a hockey showdown like never before. McDavid versus Matthews. There can only be one winner, competing for all the glory and all the prize. The new menu features top shelf plays like the Smoky Quarter Poppy and the Big Mac David, so everybody scores, with even more delicious options like the Spicy Junior Chirpy. Now that calls for a silly Sunday. The Showdown menu, now available at McDonald's.
Kids getting free all season long. Can you believe it? Looking for an enjoyable and affordable family night out? The Spruce Grove Saints are excited to introduce their Kids Get In Free program. All kids 12 and under receive free admission for every Saints home game this season. Bring the entire family for action-packed junior hockey at a fraction of the cost. For more information, check out sgsaints.ca.
Some things just work together. Sticks and pucks, cleats and AstroTurf. Your love for the game and Papa John's passion for better ingredients. Better pizza. Nothing pairs with the game like Papa John's. Crafted with signature sauce, toppings, and original fresh dough. They're the champion of pizza. And now you're the champion of winning deals. Just order at papajohns.ca. Use promo code SPORTS20 and score 20% off any regular menu price order. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's. That's Sports20.
Imagine a family get-together where the smiles are as genuine as the conversations. That's the feeling you get at Nisku Ford. a family-owned dealership where finding a new Ford feels just like catching up with old friends. Swing by during the 2024 model clear-out and take advantage of January rebates of up to $9,000.
Yes. Matt DeMosic is a
finance rates as low as 0%. The coffee's on, so drive into Nisku Ford or visit niskuford.ca today. Above expectations.
Cold, icy mornings, frozen windshield, snow in the forecast, and your vehicle won't start. You know what that means, Alberta. Winter is here. Don't get left out of the cold. Head to
having me, guys.
Alberta today to gear
Thanks
up for the
a
frosty
lot.
months ahead. Winter won't wait, and neither should you. From premium batteries, starters, and alternators to high-quality wiper blades, antifreeze, and snow brushes, Napa Auto Parts has everything you need to get your vehicle winter ready and running. With over 85 locations in Alberta, stop into your local Napa store or visit napacanada.com for all your trusted parts, tools, equipment, and automotive needs. That's Napa know-how.
Legacy Heating and Cooling is the only place to call for heating your home. So when it's time to replace your old furnace,
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
or for 24-hour repair with no overtime rates,
Call Legacy.
Legacy even heats your shower with hot water tanks.
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
And with no interest and no payments for 1 year, it could only be Legacy Heating and Cooling.
Need a solid foundation without the fuss? Richard and Kalina at DCL Pile Driving have your back. Locally owned, they offer straight, driven piles. No screwing around. Serving all of Alberta, DCL Pile Driving gets your foundation ready in hours with minimal ground disturbance. Perfect for tight spaces, whether it's for a deck, grain bins, or RTMs. Tell them the radio sent you and receive a special discounted rate. Call or text 587-322-PILE. DCL Pile Driving. Don't get screwed. Get piles driven.
Portions of this hour brought to you by Japa Machinery. Did you know that Japa offers in-house and on-site service? Rain or shine, Japa's service department is here for you. Get a quote now at japamachinery.com.
The Jason Gregor Show, the best of Edmonton sports talk and beyond. This is Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Just after 5 o'clock. Welcome back. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440, Orders Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X, as always, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website where 100% of the revenue stays right here in the province. Use the promo code Gregor50 and get a free $50 play at PlayAlberta.ca. Lots of texts coming in. Guys, I have to say, the segment is very forward-thinking and informative. Look forward to it every week. Excellent stuff. Dave at Whitetail. Also, hey, Gregor, I really enjoyed what Matt had to say. Fantastic stuff. Where can our team hire him? He's at Mind Bluffs. Just look up Mind Buff, I should say, not Bluff. Mind Buffs. Buffs. Matt DeMosic. And you pretty much can see him right on the front page. It's very simple to find. So, excellent stuff. Let's get to the spec report now, brought to you by GS Construction. And you know what? Hey, they understand the importance of being not noticed, but having value. They are the reliable underground infrastructure specialists, and they're also hiring. If you're looking for a great job with a great company with great benefits, go to Indeed.com and look up GS Construction. As Mark Spector from Rogers Sportsnet joins us. Spec, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. How you doing, Jake?
Hey, I'm excellent. I always like having informative conversations about different topics that we touch on, and I have to say it's probably the first time we've talked about importance of love in pro sports. It probably gets overlooked. It's just a unique thing, and really even in everyday life amongst gents. We talked about and asked guys, when was the last time you ever told one of your buddies you love them and why? And most guys are like, never. So at least the why, at least the why part. For sure. So we'll see. But, the Oilers, sometimes, Spec, even when you lose, you can really love your performance. And overall, it seemed like Chris Knobloch and his players, they really liked the majority of their game last night.
Yeah, well, when you play the best team in the league and give up 11 even strength shots, what are you going to complain about? What are you going to give up less than that? Give up 14 shots on goal in the game. That's as good as you're going to play. Unfortunately, 2 of the shots were certainly off of, rushes caused by giveaways, and Washington buried them. Like Washington, the one was a 2-on-1. Tom Wilson scores. The other, the guy hits the post. It comes out in front, and all the Oilers are kind of not picking up a trailer, and it's in a wide open net. So tough game to lose when you played that well. But you know what? This team hasn't lost 2 games in a row since November 4th and 6th. So I'd say it was probably bound to happen at some point, Jay.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's why tomorrow night's now pretty important. You don't have McDavid. Yeah. You've got a Vancouver Canucks team coming in whose coach was very disappointed with the result last night against Buffalo. And so I would think they got a little edge to their game. You throw in the, not that Garland did anything cheap, but obviously it led to, McDavid's actions today. He spoke about it for the first time. And so I think there'll be a little extra juice for both teams in that game. I really like what Connor McDavid had to say. He said, hey, man, I shouldn't have done what I did, point blank. He didn't back away from it. Also said on numerous occasions he respects the officials. And he's not the first guy to say, hey, just call the rule book. But I honestly believe if change is going to happen, whether it's McDavid or others, they're going to have to either have conversations with Marty Walsh behind closed doors or somebody, because, saying it once on January 22nd, if you really want change, they're going to have to work at it to make change. It's not a one-off 8-minute interview and then we move on.
No, it's deep into hockey culture. There's no doubt. I got a column that just went up on sportsnet.ca really about that. This is so much more than, one play where Garland's dogging him and wrestling him down. Like that's just one play in one game. It's, we got to go back to Mario Lemieux, who finally spoke out because he couldn't stand it anymore. We go back to Wayne Gretzky, who carried guys around the ice. Remember they had shadows? Remember Steve Casper? He just put his stick into Wayne Gretzky's gut and follow him around the whole shift. It's a culture that always says the best players are expected to fight through the gunk to get the job done. They're expected to fight through a gauntlet of less sticks now than there used to be, for sure, but still have to fight through all the little hooks and little holds and all that to get to where they need to go. And that's hockey culture. It's not just Connor McDavid. It goes back to Matt Sundin and Joe Sakic and all the best players in the league, and it's really still there today. Will it ever will Connor McDavid ever get a free runway to be Connor McDavid, or will Nate McKinnon, Jay? I don't know if he ever will.
Yeah, it's difficult, but you know what? If you want change, it's never easy, right? It's funny. Earlier was Martin Luther King Day on Monday, and look at, you want to invoke change, and decades later, it's not completely changed, right? The racism still exists in society. I think it's probably always going to exist, but you want to make it something that gets talked about and more importantly, gets called out when it's obvious. And, I think in the case of the NHL, on a much lower level of importance here, I'm not comparing racism to penalties. Yes. Let's just clarify that. But I'm just trying to make an example that, change is never easy. Right? Ask when your partner, geez, I'd like you to change this or that. Oh my God, it feels like it's the worst thing ever. It might be as simple as don't put your socks on the counter. Just put them in the laundry bin. Right? We're habitual, so it takes a while. But I look at McDavid and kind of where they go from here, and some people are trying to make the hit against LA like. You're allowed to have body contact. McDavid had the second most hits on the team last year amongst forwards. Like him hitting a player is illegal. There's nothing wrong with it, whatsoever. But I do think that even the fact that when Connor McDavid hits someone, it illustrates the lack of physicality on Edmonton team because you just don't see many body checks coming from this group.
Well, he said something today that perked my ears up. I asked him if he's changing his game because the referees maybe aren't, you've done all the stats this week. So have I. The referees are calling less penalties for McDavid, for McKinnon than they have in the past. I asked him if he's changing his game with the LaFerriere hit, with, what happened with Johansson, with Garland. And he said he went through each incident and absolutely said, you probably heard it today, but what perked my ears up was he said that the hit against LA, he said it was a dull game. Nothing was going on. He says, I'm a leader on this team, and I felt like we needed to get a little bit of physicality in the game, and we needed to get a bit of jump and some energy. So he went out and looked for a hit and found it and really finished Laferriere. Not many, Art Ross Trophy regular winners take that responsibility, right? There's usually someone else in the team who's supposed to get that energy provided by a really hard body check. The fact that Connor McDavid's doing it, I like that about Connor McDavid. I think that's awesome. I admire that in a superstar, but it also tells me the Oilers are lacking other guys who do it, right?
Oh, dude, 100%. I still feel that's an element of their game that needs to be addressed between now and the trade deadline. I think it's a must.
Yeah. They need more physicality. They need, because for instance, I thought the Vancouver series last year, that was really what kept Vancouver close in the thing. They just bludgeoned the Oilers, especially in Vancouver. They beat them up. And that they gave them the energy they needed to stay in that thing. And Edmonton did not match Vancouver's physicality. They didn't match anybody's physicality in the playoffs. They beat them other ways. But I agree with you. If there's a place in the Oilers' arsenal that is light, it is certainly their physical game.
Yeah, I think I'm a firm believer that it's something that they have to address. Even if Evander Kane comes back, that's one guy. I think they need another one. On top of that as well. We've had a few texters, talking about the Oilers need spec. Okay, they got to have another depth defender. Sure. Maybe they got to get, what about having another depth goalie? You think that's important for this team? You think it's necessary?
To me, that's a wish list that you probably never get to. You've only got so many assets. You've only got so much cap space. You've only got so many acquisitions you can make. You can't make them all. You can't make them all. Would you be better if you had a guy that was better than Calvin Pickard in case Skinner goes down? Of course, you'd be better. Can you afford the assets it would take to get that guy when you got other pressing needs? I don't see it. I don't see it happening, Jay. Do you?
Well, the question I always ask is, well, who, right? Because there's lots of teams you could put in that same category that, if you lose your starting goaltender, life might be a little bit harder for you, right? There's no debate about that. I think we would all agree that could be an issue.
Wow. Name me a team that isn't in trouble. Like, out of 32 teams, how many have a backup that they can live with long term if their starter goes down?
Yeah, there's a few, of course, like, Vancouver's like, hey, we got Lankinen, we think he's all right. And, there are a few of them, but you're right. There's not many. There's no question about it. There's not many. Yeah.
Almost none. And not anyone in this division. Who's backing up in Vegas? Samsonov. You're not winning playoff series with Samsonov. You're not winning playoff series in LA with Dave Riddick. Probably Calgary's closer than anybody with Wolf and Vladar. Pickard won a game in the playoffs, but I'll say to you, you're probably not winning a bunch of series. I don't know who the teams are. Winnipeg's backup ain't winning series for them. Comrie, no chance.
Yeah. Like Toronto, I guess, with Wall and Stolars when they're both healthy.
Maybe, sure.
Yeah, but they don't have a ton of playoff success yet. Fair. But, even Florida, like young Knight, maybe, but we don't know.
You don't know.
Tampa Bay, definitely not. Now, Washington has two goalies, but Thompson's numbers are infinitely better this year. Charlie Lindgren's, like a 901. It's okay. Last year, he was very good, but that's the goaltending position. He's not this year. Carolina, no chance because they never know who's healthy in Carolina. They end up going through 2 or 3. They're always whistling, geez, we should get another goaltender. After Jake Ottinger in Dallas, they lost Wedgwood. So, who do they have? Well, yeah, it's a fair point. Right, it's definitely a fair point. And when
nobody has that luxury, man. None of the top teams have that luxury.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, when Boston had it, and they had the best record in hockey, it didn't do anything for them. So because there you go. They opted not to use it, which is very weird in itself. Moving ahead to the Oilers, and you look at what you saw last night. Leon Draisaitl, another very strong game for him. Which no surprise, he's had a strong game whether McDavid's in the lineup or not, but. The power play struggled last night. Both power plays, actually, I thought were bad. They tried Ekholm there to start the one power play in the third period because, he said, hey, we're working more on the left side. We want the left guy in the back end, so it allows for a touch pass back, which makes all sense. I understand it. But it's also, I don't think they make that play if Evan Bouchard isn't struggling to shoot and pass more than anything. It wasn't his defending that was the issue last night, Spec. No. I don't think I saw him get beat once. And that's what's kind of surprising to me is Bouchard's struggles have come more in relation to puck plays than defensive reads.
Yeah, that's right. I think we can, and let's face it, he's mostly an offensive defenseman. He's going to get burned once in a while. That's what he is. We all could live with that. No problem. Because he makes it up for you in the offensive zone. He makes it up for you handling pucks, passing pucks, moving pucks. And that part of his game has not been good. So if he's not working for you in that part of the game, then all of a sudden, you certainly don't, like the defenseman we saw down the second half of last season through the playoffs. Evan Bouchard he was a legit number one defenseman in the National Hockey League, no questions asked. And he's fallen back a little bit this year. The game isn't as good. His puck play is not as good. His shot isn't as accurate. His work on the power play isn't as clean. We're all waiting for it because we know it's there. And I would tell you that I expect to see it. But, it wasn't a great first half for Evan. And now we're into the second half. And it's not a great start to the second half. So, when does this train get here, Jay?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like in a roundabout way, like it's not costing them games overall, right? Like they've gained ground lately on the Sharks. So that's a good, and really in a weird way, Spec, and I've said this might benefit Edmonton because his cap demands are going down with every passing week.
They are. I think what we're finding here is if I'm his agent, and let's say I fully expect Evan Bouchard's game to get to where it needs to be. And frankly, if this team's going to win a Stanley Cup, it's going to have to get to where it needs to be because he's got to be a big part of it. Like he was in the playoffs. He was a huge part of the playoff team last year. They need him to be that good again. But if it didn't, there wouldn't be an 8-year deal waiting for Evan Bouchard because his agent would say, I'm not signing a long-term deal coming off an average season. It would be a bridge contract, which I'm not sure. We could go, the bridges didn't work great in the case of Darnell Nurse. I'm not sure how it would go for Bouchard, but the player is a little bit in charge of this thing, Jay. If he doesn't like his season, I doubt you get him on an 8-year deal.
See, now that's a fascinating conversation point. Did the bridge deals not work for Nurse? Because I would argue that Darnell Nurse, every year up until the first year of his extension, he was better value than what his dollar was.
Okay.
Every year, entry-level deals. So the 2 years at 3.3, the 2 years at 5.5, he always was better. So every year in his career. Now, this season, no one's really talking about Nurse's numbers because he's playing so well, right? So this year, you're like, hey, contract's fine. So there was 2 years where it wasn't. So when I look at it overall, I say if Evan Bouchard signs a 2-year bridge deal, then you have 2 more years and hey, maybe he has good numbers and then you see what happens. I wouldn't be opposed to it, to be honest. I really wouldn't be opposed to it because I think there's been longer years of Nurse giving you good value than there have been him not giving you good value.
No, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. If you look at it real big picture,
yes,
that's right. So, it's more about your salary structure, your cap structure, where the cap's going. With McDavid, expected to sign this summer, maybe a bridge deal for Bouchard would take a little bit of this pressure off, wouldn't it, Jay? Off of a cap, if you add both those contracts in, that could be a little rough, I would say.
Well, but the interesting thing, you saw the story today. They have stopped escrow payments for the rest of the year for players. There's also a 2 to 6% increase that they're going to be giving them. There was talk that the salary cap would be $93 million next year, but now that might be low. It might end up being 95. And so now all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, Draisaitl's contract kicks in with that one. Bouchard's contract kicks in. Okay, sure. But the cap just went up. And, we're not in the Draisaitl's raise. We're not struggling anywhere else. because, that takes some of the cap. So I think, the Oilers actually might end up here in a not bad spot because if the salary cap is going to go up as much as they're projecting, like the fact that they stopped escrow, that's a huge thing. Like that shows you, right, that, they're in a better spot and they under projected, which is rare. And, hey, to any financial guy out there, you'd much rather do that than, say, oh, geez, we thought we'd be making way more and we're making way less. And now we're going to have to escrow you at 20%. That would really hurt. So that to me is kind of a fascinating, it's a sidebar, but I still think Edmonton, and I said it all last summer, there was no rush to sign Evan Bouchard. And this is the season why, because last year was the perfect year. In his whole career, I don't know if he'll ever break another NHL record for most assists by a defenseman and have 82 points and play as well as he did. It wasn't just points. He was playing huge minutes, played the most minutes on the team. He was physical. He upped his intensity. Everything was great. So if he matches it, all right, then he probably gets 10 mil. But if he doesn't, now maybe he's only $8 million player, which is still a lot, but that's a big difference.
At his age, I'll say this, at his age, I'd be disappointed if last year was the best year of his life.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, if he did this at 29, I'd say, whoa, that's going to be hard to match. But how old is Bouchard today?
24 or 3?
24. I think 24. I don't have it in front of me. I think 24. I mean,
actually, he's 25 spec. Jeez,
there you go. As a defenseman, as a young defenseman, they mature a little bit later, as we've seen.
Yep.
I would be very disappointed if his best year was in his 24-year-old season, and I would never bet for that to happen. That history tells us he's got even better years coming. So that's why this year surprises me. We all thought he really figured it out last year, and for some reason he's had some struggles this year. But I'm not giving up on the guy. I'm here to tell you, I think as the competition raises down the stretch, so too will his game raise, because I saw it last year. I'm not saying that because I like the guy, or I'm not saying that because he's an Oiler or anything. I saw it with my own eyes last year. I don't see it just disappearing for no good reason.
Spec, have yourself a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, Jake.
There you go. That's Mark Spector, the Spector. Now, when I say the perfect season, like 82 points is a great year, but it was more like that playoff. Like, it's going to be hard for him to ever match that playoff production again. And that's not a knock, because it's record breaking. It's hard to break a record the next year or again later on, right? Especially a record like that. So you might break a record for 25 goals a game without a goal, whatever. That can happen. But for him to have that great of a year, I just think it might be hard to ever match it again. Quick break. We'll return on the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. We got more in the Oilers room, an interview that you might have missed that I think you're really going to want to hear next.
You don't know what awaits you on the road to come, but with the 2025 XC90 from Volvo of Edmonton, you'll have the versatility to take on whatever life throws at you. The new XC90, a luxurious SUV with seating for up to 7, boasts newly upgraded body and wheel design. It's the perfect choice to drive into the coming year. And right now, you'll save $4,500 and lease from 1.49% on all in-stock 2025 XC90s. Volvo Cars Edmonton. VolvoCarsEdmonton.com, 1205 101 Street Southwest.
Some things just work together. Sticks and pucks, cleats and AstroTurf. Your love for the game and Papa John's passion for better ingredients. Better pizza. Nothing pairs with the game like Papa John's. Crafted with signature sauce, toppings, and original fresh dough. They're the champion of pizza. And now you're the champion of winning deals. Just order at papajohns.ca. Use promo code SPORTS20 and score 20% off any regular menu price order. Better ingredients. Better pizza. Papa John's. That's SPORTS20.
It's a new year, and the Brick is clearing out their old inventory. They're blowing out furniture for up to 60% off the original price, with in-stock items ready to go and additional unadvertised discounts. Check out your nearest Brick location to save up to $1,300 off sofas, up to 25% off bedroom and dining, and up to 40% off mattresses, plus more deals in every department. It's a new year, and the Brick is clearing out their old inventory. Exclusions apply. The Brick, saving you more.
We've finished construction of our gamma radiation containment facility. Is it up to code? Is it going to be safe?
Sounds like a job for the men and women of Action Electrical.
Testing team reporting. We test your commercial operations using tools like infrared to ensure safe operation. Trust us to prevent potential calamity before it strikes.
Facing an electrical mess?
call the men and women of Action. Operating throughout Alberta at actionelectrical.net.
You know, this year I can't decide what to work on for my New Year's resolution. See, my confidence, my appearance, or my general happiness.
Why not improve all three by finally addressing your hair loss? Hi, I'm Dr. Vancelia. Receding hairlines and bald spots can chip away at your self-image, make you look older, and feel unattractive. Let's discuss your options for regaining a full natural head of hair and make this the year you get your mojo back. Book a free first consultation today at drvancelia.com.
Need a solid foundation without the fuss? Richard and Kalina at DCL Pile Driving have your back. Locally owned, they offer straight, driven piles. No screwing around. Serving all of Alberta, DCL Pile Driving gets your foundation ready in hours with minimal ground disturbance. Perfect for tight spaces, whether it's for a deck, grain bins, or RTMs. Tell them the radio sent you and receive a special discounted rate. Call or text 587-322-PILE. DCL Pile Driving. Don't get screwed. Get piles driven.
All right, Metal Supermarket's mailbag time again. Maggie from Millwoods writes, I wanted metal shelving for my greenhouse. The old wood stuff was rotting. Metal Supermarkets help make it happen. And Bob from Beaumont asks, does size matter? Well, let's keep this PG, okay? But seriously, Bob, the size of your order doesn't matter. Big or small, they're here to help with metal cut to your exact measurements fast. The convenience store is for Southside, West End, metalsupermarkets.com.
It's a new year, and the Brick is clearing out their old inventory. They're blowing out furniture for up to 60% off the original price. With in-stock items ready to go and additional unadvertised discounts, check out your nearest Brick location to save up to $1,300 off sofas, up to 25% off bedroom and dining, and up to 40% off mattresses. Plus, more deals in every department. Some exclusions apply. The Brick, saving you more.
Portions of this hour brought to you by Cantork. We offer sale, rental, repair, and calibration of hydraulic, pneumatic, and battery-powered torque wrenches, stud tensioners, and flange maintenance equipment. Order today at cantork.com.
Hat tricks, touchdowns, and home runs. Get it all with the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
.532, welcome back. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley, Declan Kruger running things online. Oilers Nation, YouTube, Facebook, X, and Instagram. Thanks for watching. Thanks as always for listening. Sports 1440, sports1440.ca. Of course, if you have the app, Stingray, iHeartRadio, Radio Player, thanks for tuning in. I love it. However you listen to the show, maybe you listen to the podcast later. Just go to the interviews at jasongregor.com. It's great. We can enjoy it. Getting a lot of feedback today on the show. Looking at, we're going to get to a conversation I had with Derek Ryan. We played it earlier. We got a lot of feedback. So for some of you, we'll listen in. So Derek Ryan, of course, became only the second player in NHL history to play over 600 games when he debuted at the age of 29. The only other player was Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. Those are the only two guys who have done it. And Derek Ryan had a very unexpected and unique path to the NHL. Undrafted player in the Western Hockey League. Actually, his 18, 19-year-old seasons were spent in Spokane. They were the last place team. They did make the playoffs, slipped into the final spot in his 20-year-old year, and they lost in 6 games. He actually then went and played in the defunct UHL, now defunct UHL, and played lower level. It's kind of UHL would have, I guess, been a little bit like the ECHL, maybe even slightly lower, but went there. And then I think he made the wise decision to say, I got all this scholarship money. I'm going to use my WHL scholarship. And he went to the University of Alberta. And then he ended up going to Europe and had a really good success. So now you're making good money in Europe. You're 28 years of age, but you elected to roll the dice and try to come back to the end. And well, not come back. You've never been there before. Never been in NHL camp. Never even been close. So I asked Derek Ryan what led to that decision that ultimately, 10 years later, probably the best decision he's ever made. But in the moment, pretty scary. What led to him deciding at 28 to try the North American route, when knowing it would likely be the American League to start?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long story. I try and keep it brief, but yeah, I mean, I was playing in Europe, having a good time, making good money. I kind of made a life for myself and my family. My firstborn child was born there, and so, life was good. Didn't necessarily have to come back to North America, but just was surrounded by a lot of smart people that are smarter than I am. My wife, my agent, my family, just kind of pushed me to kind of take the chance. This is your one opportunity after my year in Sweden. Most importantly, I had that good year there, and NHL teams are starting to look at me after that. And yeah, so that was my chance. And, the story doesn't end there. I signed with Carolina and basically spent the whole season in the American Hockey League and making less money than I was in Europe. And, travel is a lot worse in the American League. The lifestyle is a lot harder than it is in Europe. So that was a grind, mentally and physically, and had to stick with it. Got called up at the end of the year and kind of made my mark there. I scored a couple goals and thought I put a good foot forward. But again, the next year I had to start in the American League again. There was a decision before that year whether I even come back or go to Europe. And, is this time to cash in? Is this going to work out? And again, the people around me kind of pushed me to make that decision and stick with it. And like I said, started in the American League again, 10 games. Had a really good start. Carolina was struggling, and they called me up, and then kind of haven't looked back since. So
it's a great story, I think, for your own kids, but for just a lot of people out there, perseverance, and you have to believe in yourself. It also is, it sounds like you had a lot of people around you that believe you, because everybody has self-doubt at times. Someone's like, no, you can do this. And the financial thing when you're 29 and 30 is a legit thing for sure. You're making way less than the American League. So that's where, your support system and your wife to really support you, say, this is about your goal. It's not just about the money, right?
Yeah, totally. I think that's kind of the advantage that I had at that point in my life, is that I was a little bit older, a different stage of life, had a wife, had a kid, and, plans for more children at that point. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the picture becomes bigger than just me. I'm not just a 21, 22-year-old thinking about myself. I'm thinking about, the dream that I've had, but also the people that I'm trying to take care of, and they're thinking about me as well. So yeah, there's a lot of decisions that go into it, a lot of factors. There's a lot of stepping stones along the way. I think it's a motivating story, not just for my family, but for kids across the world, hockey or whatever sport or whatever you're doing in life. It's a story of perseverance, sticking with it, but also just kind of taking care of what's important. Yeah. What's important right in front of you right now. I wasn't thinking about the NHL when I was playing for the Bears or playing in Austria or Sweden. I was thinking about it a little bit when I was in the American League, but every step of the way, you're just kind of, how can I be the best that I can be right now where I am? And I mean, I think in life that's pretty useful.
Your ability as a player, evolved, and you must have changed a little bit. What did you focus on in Europe that allowed you to become a better player, and obviously kind of maybe reopen the eyes of NHL scouts as you as a legit prospect?
Yeah, I think that's another advantage that I had, having my journey, kind of touching every rung of the ladder and different ladders along the way, I guess you could say, is that I was able to change and adapt and grow in my game. I grew a lot as a Golden Bear on and off the ice. I matured, went to Austria, which is a pretty high-flying, high-scoring league, 5-4, 6-5 games. So I think I learned a little bit of the offensive part of the game there, how to score and how to make plays. And the transition from Austria to Sweden was incredibly hard, because Sweden's the opposite. It's a 1-0 game in Sweden is the best hockey game ever. So it's really defensive, big goalies, big defensemen, strong, hard to get to the net. So, that's the point in my career where I think I learned to play the defensive side a little bit more. I learned to grow my game, play the 200-foot centerman role. And also, I learned to score in hard, tight areas. That's how you have to score there. So yeah, I went from there, and then, the change from European hockey to North America is huge. The ice size is obviously different, and a little bit rougher here, and more grinding along the boards. And the American League's definitely a lot of that. So I had to learn that and grow that to my game as well. So yeah, as you see, every step in the journey, I kind of added a layer to my game, and I grew and adapted. And the same is true for my time in the NHL. I've had to grow and adapt and what I can do and what I can provide for the team here.
Every coach I've ever talked to that's had you as a player, probably the one thing I talk about is just hockey smarts. Where do you think that comes from? And just can you describe for you the importance of understanding the game, regardless of whether you want to be in an offensive league or learning the defensive game, how important that is maybe for young players to really get a sense of how to play the game?
Oh, I think it's huge, especially in today's day and age where kids have so many resources to hone their skills. Every kid growing up now can skate, can shoot, can handle the puck way better than I could have back then, just because of their training resources and what they're able to do. But I think quite a few of them struggle with how to play the game and kind of how to put it all together. You know, they have all the tools, but they can't put it all in the toolbox, so to speak. Where did I get that? I don't know. I mean, I think it just kind of came natural to me. I guess it's something that maybe God-given a little bit, but you kind of learn, you know, as a guy, a player like I am. I'm not the fastest guy. I'm not Connor McDavid. Nobody is, but I don't have his speed or his hands or whatever, his vision. You kind of have to grow your game a little bit, a piece at a time. And, you know, I see guys like him and I can add a piece of his game. Maybe I can see his vision or his poise with the puck. And then you see Leon, you know, I don't have his big body. I can't protect the puck like he does, but I can see a little bit of layer that I can add. I can't be like him, but I can add a little piece of his game. So I think I've just been good at that. I've been good at seeing other players, what they're good at, and trying to, you know, not emulate them, so to speak, but just add a little bit of their game to my game.
And you've created something you're very good at. You're an elite face-off guy. And, you know, a lot of the big centermen are big.
Yeah.
Right? You obviously, I don't know if you want to give away tips at it, but what allowed you to get better as a smaller guy on face-offs?
Well, with today's video, I don't think there's any secrets that I could be hiding to keep me at the top or wherever I am. But I don't know. I'm smaller, so I guess that gives me a little bit of leverage. I can get underneath people. Yeah, I've kind of grown and added layers to that in my NHL career as well. I started my career in Carolina and getting a lot of O-zone face-offs, and it's a lot easier to win draws in the O-zone. You can be down second. You have an advantage there, and there were guys in Carolina like Jordan Stahl, Jay McClement, who were taking a lot of D-zone draws, so I could watch them. Obviously, they're bigger bodies and they have a different style than I do, but again, I can see what they're doing, tying guys up or trying to get over the dot a little bit more, owning the dot, so to speak. That's what Rod Brindamore liked to preach. There's a lot. I mean, I could speak for hours on the intricacies of face-offs, but yeah, I've just tried to get better and better as I've grown here in the NHL, and yeah, there's a lot of people that they come in and out of the NHL. It's hard to stay here, and so I feel like you have to add you know, valuable pieces in order to stay here for a long time. And, you know, 600 games for myself, starting at 29, that's pretty good. I'm pretty proud of that.
You talk about how you learned how to score in Sweden in small spaces.
Yeah.
What did you learn? How do you become successful at scoring in small spaces?
I think there's a lot to that as well, but the simplest thing is just you have to be willing to get inside, you know, get to the net, get to the scoring areas. Coaches across the league in the NHL, I'm sure, know the stats of where goals are scored from. There's not that many guys that can score from outside the big house or whatever. I don't have the Ovi shot or even Cappy has an amazing shot. I don't have that. So you have to find ways to get inside, and I don't have a huge body either, so I can't just go get to the net and stay there. The guys are going to be able to push me out. So it's working on timing, getting there at the right time when the puck's going to be there, kind of meet it there. Yeah, there's just lots of little things that I learned in Sweden, because you can't, on the big ice in Sweden, they protect the middle. You can fly around the outside all day long. They'll give you that, but you have to learn, you know, how to penetrate that, how to get in the middle and get to those scoring areas and get there when it counts.
This journey has been more than just about you know, your wife and the plans to have kids and to make that sacrifice. Your son's big into hockey. He loves it. He's at that age now where, you know, he's not just a 5-year-old. He kind of understands what dad does. You know, kids they can learn lots from their parents, just a work ethic, whether you're a farmer, engineer, whatever. How important is that for you that, you know, your son can see, you know, your commitment, your perseverance without you having to say much sometimes?
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that's part of the legacy that I'm trying to leave Zane, and, you know, not just Zane, but my nephews and whatever, family and friends, people I don't know. It's the impact that I try and leave on the hockey world. But I think he's a little young still. I think he, sees that dad isn't the flashy player that maybe some of the other players are, which is fine. But I think later in life, he can look back when we're looking at 97's jersey in the rafters and, knowing that dad played with him and was a part of something special here. That'll hit him later in life, as most things do, as your perspective changes, you grow and mature and all those things. But I think he's learning a little bit. He's seeing, what dad has had to do to stay in the league, what I've done to get here in the first place. It's not something I preach to him for sure, but it's something that he can see on his own.
Chris Knobloch told me you're a top 5 again, a lot of the fitness tests at the start of the year. It's obviously something you've taken a lot of pride in.
Yeah.
You don't stay in the NHL, in your late 30s if you're not in elite shape now, for sure. Can you put into perspective what game number 600 and, now every other game, what it truly means to reach that type of milestone, only the second guy to ever do it, and how you've been able to continue to do that? And obviously, does that push you to think about 700?
I try not to do that because that's kind of the message the whole career, right? I'm not looking towards the next step. I'm not looking towards Sweden or the American League or the NHL. I'm looking towards what's important right now. And for me, obviously I'm older, different perspective, but I think a lot of guys have the same perspective that, we think we have something special here, and that's what we're focusing on. We're trying to do something special here. And, so I think that's a big part of it. Obviously, fitness has been a big part of who I am, kind of the whole way. It's a big part of my identity. And as you get older, it just gets more and more important. I think my fitness has changed a little bit. I'm not getting under a 400-pound squat barbell anymore. I'm just working more on my conditioning, trying to maintain some quickness and skill and all that kind of stuff. But it's all important. It's all layers to the whole onion that I'm trying to put together, which is my identity as a hockey player. And that's a small layer of the onion of who I am as a person too. So I guess that's it.
And lastly, Derek, everybody in this room is ultra competitive. You don't get to the NHL without being ultra competitive. You're in a role player's role now, and some nights you're in, some nights you're out. The importance to always be upbeat and positive. I'm sure deep down you're disappointed in any game you don't play.
Yeah.
How do you put that aside at this stage to just make sure that you can be the best guy, even if you don't get to play every night?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the biggest thing for me is that I've been around long enough now that I've seen kind of both sides of that. I've seen the guys that are in and out of the lineup and they're moping around, they're sad, they're mad, they're pouting, whatever it is. And that's just an energy suck. Nobody wants that around. And like I said, I'm trying to be part of something special here. And whether that's I'm playing every night or every third night or whatever it is, I'm trying to focus on what's important now, which is what's right in front of me. And, what I can do today. If I'm playing, great. What can I do to help the team win? If I'm not playing, then that's great too. What can I do to get better and be ready when it is my turn to play?
Derek Ryan, who, since that interview, I did that in the dressing room late last week. And, since then has been put on waivers and is now in Bakersfield. And, who knows if he'll be back in the NHL, regardless of what happens in the next chapter for him. It's been an amazing example of perseverance, commitment, support, which I think kind of ties into our theme today when you talk about love. Like, Bonnie, his wife, they've been together since he was 18. And, he said that every step of the way she was like, hey, we're going to go to Australia. Now we're going to go to Sweden and go to these different places. And it's hard. Like when you're the hockey player, you just walk into the room and you got new friends right away. Right? It's totally different for the wives or the girlfriends. And that can be a challenge for sure. But said his wife, Bonnie, was just monumental in his success. Quick break. We'll come back, wrap things up in the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Hockey is back, and Play Alberta, Alberta's #1 sportsbook and official partner of the Edmonton Oilers, has you covered with bigger offers, boosted odds, live betting, player props, and more. New to Play Alberta? New players now receive $200 in free bets just for signing up. You already play? Get a $10 free bet for every $100 you bet every week all season long. Visit playalberta.ca and make your picks today. Bonus terms and conditions apply.
My utility bills are going through the roof. How can I take advantage of the sun and put my lazy roof to work?
Sounds like a job for the men and women of Action Electrical.
Energy team reporting. When you're ready to make your home or business more efficient, Action Electrical has the power to install solar panel systems and EV chargers.
Facing an electrical menace? Call on the men and women of Action. Operating throughout Alberta with supercharged skills and strong family values. ActionElectrical.net.
Some things just work together. Sticks and pucks, cleats and AstroTurf. Your love for the game and Papa John's passion for better ingredients, better pizza. Nothing pairs with the game like Papa John's. Crafted with signature sauce, toppings, and original fresh dough. They're the champion of pizza. And now you're the champion of winning deals. Just order at papajohns.ca. Use promo code SPORTS20 and score 20% off any regular menu price order. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's. That's SPORTS20.
A Bedtime Story by Zachary Martin Hyman.
The hockey game's over. The Zamboni sleeps soon. I lay down in comfort, Legacy heating my room. Good night to you, furnace, with your hot blower running. Good night to you, air vents, keeping the warm air coming. Good night to my payments that I won't see for 1 year. Good night to my Legacy. Bedtime is near.
Warm winter nights. That's how you soothe your Legacy. Legacy Heating and Cooling.
Diablo Boots in Canada West, the two best names in work, biker, and western boots. Diablo has been selling quality Canadian boots for over 60 years, from size 6E to 15EE. Why buy boots made in China like Ariat, Redwing, and Dakota, when Diablo Boots has the best quality for less? Made in Winnipeg. Plus, all of Diablo Boots have replaceable soles and heels for longer life. So save on boots by Save on Foods. That's Diablo Boots, 3340 Gateway Boulevard, on the east side of Save on Foods.
Portions of this hour brought to you by Epcor. Stormwater ponds in Edmonton are designed to move water and runoff from streets and sidewalks, making them unsafe for winter activities. Instead, head to a community league or city rink that is safe for you, your family, and friends. Think twice and stay off the ice. Learn more at epcor.com/winter safety.
The Jason Gregor Show, the best of Edmonton sports talk and beyond. This is Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Hey, if you like fisticuffs, I'll put it out on my Twitter feed. But man, Ryan Reeves and Matthew Olivier, that was Reeves' first tilt of the year. It was a massive. It was, I don't know how long of a tilt that was. Got to be at least a minute. Both those guys were throwing huge bombs. Both guys knocked each other's helmet off. It was the two big, strong dudes, man. And the thing is, like, Olivier plays a lot of minutes. I think he's got 10 goals too. Right. So at this stage of their career, he's the better player. But that was a slobber knocker, as they like to say. Hey, Gregor, speaking of nachos, what's your thoughts on what happened last night? Honestly, no one should be applauding the person who threw those nachos on the ice. You're not smart. You're actually very lucky. The play usually would just get blown down, which means then no goal for Corey Perry. B, and in fact, under the rules, the home team can get a delay of game penalty. I'm sorry, you don't throw stuff on the ice. And no one can be encouraging that. It's funny. No, it's not. Okay, it's not. Don't tell me, well, no one got hurt. That's not the point. If you encourage it, the next less than intelligent person is going to now throw a full beer. And that's how it escalates, right? Don't do it. Don't encourage it. It's ridiculous. Shouldn't happen. By the way, Corey Perry tied Pavel Bure on the career goal list last night. 437 goals. Not bad. And Rick Nash. So he's tied for 76. His next goal will put him 75th with Gary Roberts. It's a pretty good career for the worm, Corey Perry. Have yourselves a wonderful Wednesday evening, everyone. We will talk lots of Oilers and Canucks tomorrow, a little NFL, and much, much more. On behalf of Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, I'm Jason Gregor. Let's get to the comment of Sports 1440 update brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling. They are hiring. If you're looking for a great company to work for with great benefits, you also get RRSP matching and more. Go to Legacy Heating.
The Sports 1440 update.
Light night in the NHL. Just 4 games on the schedule, 2 of which are underway. Morgan Geeky's 12th of the season has the Bruins on top of the Devils 1-0. And midway through the first, Leafs and Jackets scoreless. Later tonight, Jets in Colorado, and the Kings host the Panthers just after 8 o'clock in the association. Right now, Pistons on top of the Hawks 22-15, and the Suns have a 16-7 lead over the Brooklyn Nets. Early on in the first quarter, Mavs and Timberwolves tied at 8. Later on, you got the Rockets and Cavs, Hornets and Memphis. Thunder host the Jazz, and the Warriors taking on the Kings to wrap it up at 8:30. The Clippers up against the Boston Celtics. Bucks and Pelicans postponed due to snow in New Orleans. In the AJ, Fort Mac hosting Grand Prairie. That'll get going at 7:30 tonight. And after 20 minutes in the PWHL, the Boston Fleet lead Toronto 2-0 from the NFL. The New York Jets have hired Aaron Glenn. The former Detroit Lions defensive coordinator gets a 5-year deal. And the Jacksonville Jaguars moving on from GM Trent Baalke. That'll do it for us here on the Jason Gregor Show. Coming up next, we've got Fox Sports Radio and then live local coverage resuming tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. on the Kevin Carius Show. I'm Connor Halley. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
In Sports 1440, a Stingray radio station broadcasting on Treaty 6 territory.
Download the free iHeartRadio app and listen to CKJR wherever you go.
You don't know what awaits you on the road to come,